20 seconds ish. Well, it says we're live now, but you still gotta wait for the notification. It's a trickster.
Yeah. Did my due diligence and sent my Dark Side shirt to a Snyder fan in Bahrain.
No, very nice.
Yeah.
Is that Scottsdale that he's working on?
Yeah, it's Scottsdale. So figured I'd help him out with one of them. I mean, it doesn't cost me anything except up front. They pay me back. So
hopefully.
No, they did. I got the PayPal. Yeah, that's the risk. You order the shirt at that point. You just hope I'm not stuck with a small Dark Side shirt. I was like, what am I going to do with this?
Well, one day your kids,
Yeah, but it's out. It's sent off. So I enjoyed doing my good deed.
It's never bad to do a good deed,
No, helping out, helping people.
And I'm surprised because I had I can't remember. I think it was maybe the vodka stream I listened to, and Scott was like pitching, talking about what he was doing, everything like that. And when he explained like you can't even access the website if you're not American, it's like, what is this? Why?
No, WB just doesn't care.
Yeah, they don't want international money.
There is literally no reasonable explanation. There is none.
Yeah,
it's just care.
It's just like, let them buy the shirts. For crying out loud, you already screwed them. You already screwed them on HBO Max right now. So for crying out loud, let them have something.
Hey, it's coming to Crave. We got something. Heinz is really excited, Because my favorite is when I was talking to Greg and I was like, I don't think Travis is going to go for this. Before he's talking about like, yeah, if he didn't get it, he was just going to zoom in Travis and screen share. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that's how Heinz wants to watch Zack Snyder's Justice League for the first time, is screen shared on Zoom.
Could you imagine like Christopher Nolan's reaction to that for the first time?
You did what to my film? Okay, I just tweeted out the link, Chris, so we're good to go.
Well, you put stuff on Fortnite, so I mean, where's the Nolan standards on that?
I want to interview him so bad and ask him about that stuff because I feel like that was against his will sort of situation, Like I don't think he was a fan of being on Fortnite, like just all this stuff. It's just so, what a guy. Someone's triggered out there, so. Anytime you're ready, Chris.
Yep, I know. I'm just tweeting.
Okay, I just want to confirm, like you weren't waiting for a go.
No, I'm frozen.
Yeah. Why are they sitting there for half an hour?
You didn't let me know.
Hey, what's up, Clay?
Yeah, I gotta pull that up too. All right, shall we start? Shall we do a show?
Why not?
Let's do it.
Why not? It's. We do it for everyone. We do it for the people and the fans.
For the people.
Yep. Yeah, always for the people.
The Canadians.
The Canucks.
Some of them.
With their mutant form of football.
Oof.
13 men in a longer field.
Canadian football sucks. It's awful. Oh, no, I'm not one of these Canadians that's going to say, like, same thing. Like, I don't like hockey enough, but, like, Heinz has always on me about not watching hockey. It's like, it's just a sport. But, yeah, Canadian.
Like treason in your country if you don't like hockey?
Oh, it really much is. Yeah, I always get a side eye, but like, no, Canadian football sucks.
Could you make it up by liking curling?
No, curling's boring. I remember, so before we start, and I'll probably put this as like a post-credit scene. I remember in my family's cabin that we own in the States, we were waiting to get cable hooked up, and with the antennas, it only caught one channel. Like this whole weekend I was there. We couldn't do anything because it was like completely raining and storming, so we had to sit there. And all it was like was this curling tournament for the whole weekend. That's all it was curling. I just remember sitting there trying to enjoy myself, and it felt like I was in a slow dying death. I can't, like, I don't know who, like, I don't know. I want to get into that. I just like, who's sitting in the crowd? Why do you go in the crowd? I couldn't even imagine sitting in the crowd watching curling. But no, I'm very on a Canadian, unfortunately, for some of my Canadian brethren. So,
well, that was a nice early squirrel we chased for a bit.
Yep.
All right. So, already in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From comics, TV, and movies, we will go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to Westview in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the Uncanny Chris.
I'm the podcaster of Mischief, Chess Snail.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Brent.
Alliance Assemble.
Even harder with 3 people, Volume 34. As you heard, we have a guest. Brent, how are you doing?
I am doing great. How are you guys?
Very good.
I'm doing very well. Very, very well.
Welcome back. It's your first appearance in 2021, so it's good to have you, sir.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think of it that way, but
Yep.
it is a momentous occasion.
Oh yeah, we're counting down the days. Yeah, so I guess I should just get right into plugs and everything, and then we'll get right into it. We got some episodes to talk about, we got some news. So this is Geek Ultimate Alliance. It is a podcast network. It's 7 days a week, 10 shows. It's a mouthful. I'm going to list them all off, but the best thing you go to the description, or you can see, because I told these guys, in 2021, there will be a cover photo updated. And it is up there on Facebook and Twitter. So you can go look there, and it just has a nice schedule completely laid out in picture form. But nonetheless, Monday is World's Finest True Believer. And I did not know this episode was dropping. So this is just by chance that Brent is here. But what did you guys talk about on Monday on World's Finest True Believers?
I don't know, Brent. What did we talk about on Monday?
Oh, we talked some Spider-Man, of course. A little bit of a amazing Spider-Man. The first arc from J. Michael Straczynski's run. No, not Since Past. Don't think of that one. We talked about one.
You always got to go with that. I would have thought you would have, when you mentioned that, I would have thought, well, no, we didn't talk about that awful One More Day.
Well, I mean, so many people were involved with one. We don't talk about that.
That's true.
The first arc of JMS's run. It is one of my absolute favorite arcs. I think it's good for old readers. I think it's good for new readers. It's good for everybody.
It is a great jumping on point if you want a good way to not have to do a lot of backstory for Spider-Man. Just the origin, you're good.
There you go. And then DC Alliance is every Tuesday. They record live on Monday nights. They just talked about Snyder Cut, Batwoman episode 3 of season 2, which is I see everybody's having different opinions about and stuff like that. So it's good that show's, recovering on a strong foot so far. Marvel Alliance is us on Wednesdays or Tuesday Night Live. Thursday is a combination of Ranger Alliance, Slice of Film, and Star Wars Alliance. I believe, Chris, you may have recorded something with Slice of Film coming up, I think.
Yes, I don't know if is it Star Wars this week or Slice of Film this week.
I think it's Slice of Film this week.
Okay, yeah. Slice of Film. Yeah, we'll be looking at continuing my journey to help Katie understand the Alien franchise. So we are looking at Aliens. This time it's war.
Very nice. So I've tried to push Chris to get to AVP. He's not going to do it. So don't try.
No, I'll do AVP. I'll do AVP at that point. I'm just not going to acknowledge Resurrection.
And then Friday is Superhero Civil Servants. They record live on their YouTube channel, and then superhero discussions on the audio feed. Then on the weekend, Super Civil Servants drops, and then Weird Science Roundup with Marvel and DC. Jim is just a monster right now with these casts he's putting out. He's doing solo, and he's going like 2 hours every day. He's just like, my goodness, that guy's just crazy. So but go listen to that. There's tons of, like we talked about the past few weeks, there's just tons of good comics coming out with Marvel and DC, and just big ones right now. So that's one of the best places to go check it out and get it reviewed. And then on Patreon, you can support us. It's a thank you at the $1 tier, and then the $5 tier, you got exclusive ad-free early episodes. I know, I can't remember, I can't reveal it yet, but I think Katie and Sarah are working on a Patreon exclusive right now. So I don't want to reveal it until it's recorded and everything like that. So they're working on that. And then eventually at some point, I do owe them. I will record one with Travis and Katie. My work schedule is kind of hectic right now, but in 2021, it'll be done. I promise them both. So I think that's everything. Chris, did I miss anything?
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
You want to go to Westview then?
Let us go to Westview, episode 4. The we had talked about last week our predictions on what was going to be. This was supposed to be another a big changing moment. We were wondering how much of the present day what was going to happen. I said probably a good intermix. I can't remember what you said. Did you say a full-on present day episode?
I think I was the full on present day episode. I wasn't seeing it going this route. I thought we could, and we'll talk about the next episode, I thought we could get some slices of it, but to do a full on start to finish, pretty much, like I know we go in the TV world for a little bit, but really start to finish, it is the sword world, and that was very interesting.
Yeah, I think even upon reflection, I've seen it 3 times, and by the second time watching it with my wife, this seemed like they needed to do this episode. I think for the general audience, aka not us, that this was a way to say, okay, let's start giving you a couple of pieces. We're not going to answer many of your questions, but we're going to put some things in perspective so you understand what's been happening.
Well, two things. One, Tim Rooney, if you want to call me a goon, one time come on and call me to my face, but you're welcome anytime on Marvel Lines. We'd love to have you. So maybe we'll get that in the works there.
Make
But
it happen. Make it happen.
second, it's because, like you said, not for us, a general audience, but I will still counter that. I think it might still be for some people because I know if you listen to SCS, like Nathan said, like those comedy episodes didn't really do it for him. And I know there's other people that are like that, that this is just not their thing, some of it. We talked about that before, right? As far as the comedy aspect and everything, it's kind of like comic books. Some comics are for you, some aren't. And I think now in retrospect, because we had talked about before, is like, oh, we're going to have 6 of the comedy world and then we'll get into real world. I think this worked. Whether we even go another 3 in the comedy world, I think this was a good idea because there are some people, I think, a bit more invested in it now. And it is like, I'm not surprised because it is the internet, but it is, I think, a bit more. I can't remember the last time something, maybe since Iron Man 3, was not so controversial, but definitely has like a talking point of, do you like this or do you not? Like with Iron Man 3 was the big twist. And then after that, I kind of feel like you kind of have a general sense of whether you like the MCU and how much you like it. This, like, because I do see like all like, they're all hit pieces, but it is like the like, oh, does WandaVision suck? Is it too slow? Is this a bad start? But like, because you've seen the cast and crew come up and be like, it gets good, like it gets really fast, but like I've loved every second of it. But it has been interesting to see the reaction, and I do think it was, now looking at it, was a very smart move. What about you, Brett, as far as going to Sword and everything, taking a break off the sitcom world?
Well, it was definitely the inverse of the previous 3 episodes where those were all Westview with just a little hint of something more. This was all the something more with a hint of Westview at the end there. But I do think it was a good move to have this episode. This feels like a good time. You're 4 episodes into this. You're about 2 hours into it. Let's get something more for the general audience. And this episode was more for the general audience. I think, we're bringing in a couple other characters that people are going to recognize. And it's just the whole thing is going to feel more familiar to them. But I don't remember which article, which blog I read this on the other day, but I saw Lisa posted the other day something about people have forgotten how to watch TV weekly.
Yes.
And I think that is very evident. And I used to be one of those people. I was all about the binge. I would take off the day of work and I'd watch whatever the Netflix show of the week was. And then I'd get through it all in a weekend and I'd realize I don't remember all the individual episodes that well.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy they're doing it this way. For me, it was Mandalorian that really sold me, like turned me back around to like, no, I prefer this model and it's just easier to fit in. But think of it this way. If they had dropped all 9 episodes in one weekend, we would have all already watched it twice, but people would not necessarily remember all the specifics the way you can go back and talk episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. But we also wouldn't have this narrative. Is it too slow? People, the worst you would hear is it really picks up after a couple episodes. Like no one would talk about it. We're getting past that point. I think that conversation is pretty much done at this point.
Well, and it's funny you brought up 2 things as far as one, and people have brought this up as well, but I feel like us reading comic books has helped with that. Like, yes, it's like old school TV, but it reminds me a lot of like when we're reading Vision right now, how there's some episodes that are, or there's some issues that are a bit slower or just set up. And I don't think there's been full on setup in this so far. But then the other thing is, I've completely forgotten the point, so I don't know what that other you brought up the, like, if we had just binged it. I'm currently rewatching the whole series of Punisher. There's so, and I'd only watched it once. There's so much I've forgotten because I did that. I watched it in 2 days so I could review it for Geek First, and that was done. And then I liked it and I moved on and went to something else. There's so many times where like I didn't remember this, and like I thought like Karen Page was in 2 episodes. No, she's like in 4 episodes of the first. Like there's so much stuff that's like I don't really recall at all because I just consumed it very quickly and it's gone. Stuff like the Beekeeper, things like that, things like, is Wanda the villain? You wouldn't have that answer because like whether she is or not, you would know in about 3 hours, where now it's like we're not going to know for sure in 5 weeks. It's looking like we're going that route, but still there could be some twists. There could see someone be behind. This could be imposter one or whatever it may be, but I think it's funny as a society because we went from regular TV to the binge model, and now we're getting retrained because Amazon did that with The Boys. Marvel's doing that. I think DC will probably, like, they do that already with Titans and Doom Patrol. I imagine with that Gotham PD show, they'll do that. Like, the binge is going away. Netflix is the only one that's kind of keeping it. But even then, they've experimented sometimes with some shows of like dropping 2 a week or 3 a week instead. Like, this is not going to mean anything to you guys because it was a big hit over at Geekverse. But like the show Love is Blind on Netflix, we love junk TV. And what they did is, though, it was 3 weeks, it was a reality show, they dropped it 3 episodes, 3 episodes, 3 episodes. So even they're starting to play with the let's not drop it all at once to keep that conversation going. And I think we could see more of that down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said it like when I got people to kind of give HBO's Watchmen a try. I said, this is not a show that you can really binge because there's a lot of stuff that you're gonna have to take in and kind of digest. I'd say if you're gonna binge, I'd say watch 2 or 3 episodes, take a break, digest, and then go back. Yeah, I mean, I think you all bring up a lot of really great points about their pros and cons to binging and not binging at that point. We all want to see it, but if in this model with new streaming services, I mean, Netflix can totally still get away with binging because they have so much on their platform. I think Disney Plus has a lot on their platform, but again, it's not the constant amount of stuff on there that's new per se.
They don't get a movie every week.
They're gonna get there. Yeah. So, but one of the things that was really cool to see, and I say cool in quotes at that point, and I wasn't expecting this coming, is that opening sequence. That was something we hadn't seen yet in the MCU. We hadn't seen the post, we hadn't seen the Hulk the snap back, and seeing, I take it back. We did see it in Far From Home, but not in this way. It was humorous in Far From Home. This one was like how probably the rest of the world experienced it. And it was pretty tense. I'm not going to lie. That was a pretty intense moment that we didn't go to the opening, Marvel screen. We went straight into that.
I think it was a great opening because it just felt like a kick in the door as far as like you've had a few weeks of having some fun, little mystery, some stuff going on, some dark stuff, but really this was a good reminder of what we're still coming off of, because it's been a while because of like COVID and delays and stuff like that. And we got that in Spider-Man, but I still feel as Spider-Man, we got that, but that was still more about mourning Tony Stark at that point. Now I feel like this is not mourning the snap and the blip, but this is still dealing with those ramifications because it sounds weird, but I still feel like because Spider-Man didn't lose that many people in the snap, like they all snapped away with them. The biggest thing he lost was like, of course he lost some years, but it was Tony, and that's where everybody else, like someone like Monica lost her mom because of the snap, Downey died because like he got taken out in battle, stuff like that. This was, she died, cancer came back, she wasn't there with her mom, and that's a terrible realization for that character.
Well, no, I was more seeing like the intensity of what happened when people came back. You're right on that sense. I'm just saying it was more humorous when you saw the news people, all the bands suddenly in the middle of the court. That was kind of humorous at that point. This was like, oh my God, you have a fun, I need to call my wife. But all this chaos is ensuing. All these people are randomly coming back. I mean, it was one of those things like, man, what kind of serious disasters could have happened as a result of these people like all of a sudden showing back up?
Well, and that to me is just like the beauty of the MCU, where it's like in a matter of kind of like a year span, you can have something as serious as Black Panther, and then you can have something a little more cookie cutter family like Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I love Ant-Man and the Wasp, but it's more, we're going to have a good time, adventure, some common hits. For Black Panther, of course, there's some laughs and whatnot, but it is more of a serious film. And you look at the dichotomy of how like they did in Spider-Man and then they did in WandaVision. That's where I think this helped, because I do remember some people being like, hey, I want a bit more of that dramatization of the snap or the blip, and well, you're getting it here, and I'm sure we will get it again in the future somewhere else too. So
I think it's important to remember when comparing the blip here versus the blip in Spider-Man Far From Home is that this was, and to be clear, this I'm pretty sure is one of my favorite MCU scenes. I love the opening of this, but like you are literally in the middle of the horror that Monica is going through as you are seeing it from her perspective as she is reformed, as like she looks at her hands and then come back. And Far From Home, you are looking at it through the lens of a end of the year school video done by a bunch of high schoolers who went through all this 8 months ago and had 8 months to get over and talk to some high schoolers. I mean, their sense of humor can be pretty demented, so it's like, of course, that like to me, I don't feel like Far From Home cheapens the moment, because they're looking at it in the past with a different lens of it's been 8 months. We know what happened. we're through everything. We know so much of what happened that we have Vision in our little video for, in memory of people who died. Like we have people who died in Wakanda there. Like it's a totally different lens than Monica waking up and thinking that she went to sleep 20 minutes ago and her mom had a successful surgery and she woke up and her mom was just gone. Like it's a totally different mindset because they're at a different point.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we get like a bunch of stuff going on, and I wasn't sure where you wanted to go next, Chris, but what did you think as far as Jimmy Woo and Darcy being back? We obviously knew they're coming back, whatnot, but they're kind of like I would say the leads in this episode. Like Monica is for a little bit, but then she gets sucked into a portal and she's gone and everything like that. So we saw those two come back, and I know there's been a big call for it on the internet. I do totally agree with that Jimmy Woo X-Files show, and I hope that Feige and the team,
Atlas, probably.
yeah, I think I hope Feige sees that and they're like, you know what, let's do it, because I just feel like that's like, no offense to Randall Park, I feel like it's a bit of a cheaper show because they're not going to be like, he's not Michael B. Jordan or something like that, but also just feel like that could be something where if you pitch it right and you go, this is exactly what it is, kind of like What If, where they keep saying like, this is, this, like essentially it's a what if, it's a fun adventure. It's nothing to do with the main continuity, but you're gonna have a good time with the show. I think they could do that. And the show or this episode gave me hope that if we get that one day, it would be quite good.
I like the idea that we have these supporting characters present in the MCU that can show up at moments that we weren't expecting them to. Like, we've heard that She-Hulk's going to have something to that effect, and some of the other Disney Plus shows might have that. I like that idea because, yes, it shows everything's connected, but it's cool that they can bring us into this universe. I mean, one of the things, like last we saw Darcy, she was still an intern. Now she's got her doctorate. So, I mean, we've seen progress. We see these characters kind of continuing on and growing at that point. Darcy still holds on to kind of her quirky kind of attitude, but she's grown. You can see how she's taking things even more kind of seriously on certain things, but doesn't lose her quirkiness. Same thing with, Agent, I always forget his name, Jimmy Woo.
Jimmy Woo.
Jimmy Woo. I thought the cool thing with the card trick, those little callbacks that people say, hey, you remember this thing? Yeah. It's just nice to see it. And he still holds his charm.
I hear these people talking about a Jimmy Woo show, and I'm reminded of like the beginning, like the first few episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where it's like investigate the crazy nonsense, whatever number it is of the week, or of the one shots that they used to put on the Marvel Blu-rays back like during phase 1, early phase 2, like a funny thing happened on the way to Thor's hammer, for example. I feel like he could star in those kind of things. And it's like, if they don't want to do a full show, 6 to 9 episodes, half hour to 45 minutes long, give us some shorts, give us some 10 minutes or something like that with it. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And he, we've only got 2 appearances with him in the character, but people clearly love him. People clearly love him. And some of that's goodwill from his past projects, of course, for the actor, but people like Randall Park as Jimmy Woo, and I think they should capitalize on that.
Yeah, it's like kind of what you brought, Chris. It is the good thing as far as we have this lineage now. We have 23 movies of the MCU, and it's just like we have just so much to pull from, and that's where I feel very lucky after Endgame, because Endgame does feel like it was like an end point, but it just like anything now, like I'm excited for it all, but it just feels like almost just cherries on top of the ice cream, like stuff we're just lucky to get. And the fact that we're still having these adventures, and that's just kind of what I thought when I saw the card trick of just like, that's earned and it was set up and it's a nice callback. And it does just, again, anybody watching this is not going to miss out of the card fact if they didn't catch it, right? Like more of a mainstream person. She's like, okay, do a card track with the thing. But us as fans, or even some people that are, general audience, but a big fan of this, they go, oh, we did the card trick. It's just, again, it's kind of what they've proven for the past few decades, as far as like, it is the little details, and that doesn't have to be in there. That doesn't overly improve it, but it just gives it just like kind of that je ne sais quoi of like, oh man, it's just so nice.
You're throwing French terms out there.
Oh yeah,
we're churching up this place.
Got to represent my Canadians. I don't represent them anywhere else. But no, like it's just those little things that pay off, and it just makes you feel fulfilled to be a fan of. Like, you know what? I've watched Ant-Man and the Wasp how many times, but it paid off because Jimmy Woo just did a card trick. And I liked them all. There was like, for me, some of the comedy didn't hit for me as far as it was like a 50-50 with her and Jimmy Woo as far as just certain dialogue. And I don't think it was them. I just think certain writing. I wasn't the biggest fan of the guy that played well, his name was Taylor Howard or Tyler Howard. I can't remember. Yeah, he was all right, but he's just like a little too wooden for me. I just don't know if they're going that route, if he's going to be like not a villain necessarily, but if he's like that sword guy that's like, oh, I don't, do it my way. I don't know. He just didn't mix with me, but I liked the episode overall. And I liked, like we said, like the little lays and of who was watching the TV. Oh, it was Darcy. And Jimmy was on the radio, and yeah, we didn't exactly move anywhere forward, but I still think plot wise and character wise, we moved a lot forward as far as these characters. We know what they're doing. So this whole time on the outside, now we officially know, okay, they're out there doing this. And I still think, yeah, we knew Wanda threw Monica last week, but it was the way she threw her was like another red flag of like, this is just no. And I just like seeing, because I talked about this after episode 1 and 2, just like, I just like seeing the people that do watch the show casually slowly start to turn and be like, oh, she's not the one we know. Like this kind of realization of like, oh, she might just be the villain. Before it was like, oh yeah, that could be fun. But now it's like, oh, we're really getting that point, because between her acting like that and the way Vision acts in that episode, it's like, something's not right here. And a big, like, if you listen to Squadcast, you know this, but like, Brent, you called it on that one. Hashtag Brent told you as far as Dead Vision, but I did not think we'd get it this early. When you said on Squadcast, I was like,
earlier than I thought.
yeah. When you said on Squadcast, like, oh, I really like that. I could for sure see that happening now. But then when it happens, what episode we're at 4 now? I was like, really? So that just makes me, that's one thing I've said on Geekverse, that I feel like now that we win the Sword World, the next episode, yeah, it's just gonna be comedy, but I feel like the twists or like the scary stuff, whatever it will be, the weird stuff is gonna be even bigger now, because it's like they almost kind of not necessarily have to top themselves, but last week was a lot of good stuff and a lot of reveals in a sense. So I'm very excited to see what they do this week, and I can't wait. It's only a few days away now,
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting kind of seeing. I think one of the other things that was I'd say surprising but not surprising is that Sword has been in existence a lot longer than we thought.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was like all of a sudden post Endgame, but it definitely seems like, especially the conversation that Monica and Haywood have, like how long they've been there, and especially when they go into, they shifted away from manned missions and refocused on robotics and nanotech AI. If you remember in Infinity War, Stark's got that nanotech suit at that point. Was he working with Sword on that?
It's worth noting that it's hard to pin down exactly when Sword was created, when it was founded, but we know for sure it was before Infinity War. Sword has been around since at least that long, because Monica is a member of it before she got snapped. Travis, you mentioned that Agent Howard Tyler was a little wooden for him. And I'm like, maybe that's because he's not really him, and he's really like a Skrull or something, and he's impersonating, because I can't put my finger on it, but there's something off about him that I feel like I just, for some reason, I'm not taking him at face value that he is who he claims to be. And if he really is who he claims to be, I think he's probably dead before the season's over. But if he survives, I don't believe he's a good guy. In which case it's like, oh, do we have another case of, the Shield being infiltrated by Hydra? Do we have Sword being infiltrated by the Skrulls? I think that's possibly going to be a part of it. Of course, we assume Skrulls are going to be involved with them overtly because of Far From Home's credit scene, but that's things I'm not ready to write his character off yet. I feel like there's more to him.
Well, but there was a Brian Haywood in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that turned out to be a member of Hydra. So
different name. I mean, this is Tyler Howard, so I mean, not the same, but I couldn't find any Tyler Howard name directly and related to Marvel Comics. Like, he's the only one.
Definitely not in the comics. I was just saying, like in S.H.I.E.L.D. there was someone with a similar last name at that point, so you never know.
Well, that's something I didn't know until we were talking about last week in our chat. As I didn't even put two and two together that Spider-Man was 8 months ago. Like, I remember hearing that, but then I completely forgot that. And it is interesting that we're getting shows essentially not like right after the blip, but pretty close to the blip. Like also got this thing with Monica, but then it's what they've said, it's like 3 or 4 weeks only after the blip. And to me, that's very interesting because like I've said before, like would we get a whole Vision episode? Would we get a whole Monica episode? We did kind of get that, even though it kind of switches, but that first half of this episode is like her episode. Of course, I'm interested for it, but I'm just very interested to see when we get, I do think like a full on Wanda episode, and just to go from, because some people, so here's the thing that I guess I would want to bring up that is like another like controversial take that people are having, that they don't necessarily maybe like that they're doing the maybe cliche or tropey storyline of the woman is having a mental breakdown and she can't control everything. I am the case where I think we got to sit back and let it play out and see, because I've heard people say like, oh, well, how do you get from her and Clint having this moment to her getting this? It's just like, to me, like, I guess some people read that as closure. Sure. But at the end of the day, Clint goes off and he has his whole family back. Where does she go to? I don't know, a room alone. Like, that's the thing. Like, all these people still have people, like even Falcon and Sam Sam and Bucky, they have this weird friendship. Like, if you look at everybody in the MCU, they almost have everybody. The Hulk's going to have his cousin now. She's still alone. She lost Vision. She lost Pietro. Hawkeye, who is her friend, is going to definitely have some mental problems as far as PTSD. And I think he's going to be sitting on the shelf for a little bit until Haley Steinfeld comes in and we get some adventures. But if you look at almost, I'm not going to say every character, but the majority of these characters have somebody. Captain America went back in the past to be with somebody, where it's just like, so, and that's the thing where it's just so funny where like Captain America could maybe break the rules of logic. He could maybe not be saving people anymore to go be with Peggy, but now Wanda's doing it. It's like, oh, well, Wanda's bad. Now she's throwing people around. So that's where it's like, okay, she's crossed that line. But if it is 3 to 4 weeks since that conversation with Clint, I'm very excited to see like, okay, what was like, and I bet that's what it was, that she's alone after all this. Everyone's getting this celebration of, oh, everyone came back from the blip. Guess what? No one came back for her.
Well, that's I to mention this to you in the chat, and I wanted to bring this up because it's a good point, saying how messed up she is. What Vision never had super speed before in the MCU or the comics. Wanda's given him those powers as her memory, and my assumption is Pietro. Remember, she had a psychic bond with Pietro, not just for being twins, but because of the Mind Stone. So it's likely, and it's pretty obvious if watching Age of Ultron, where she sensed and felt his death, experiencing the only person she's ever loved die inside their mind. She's got some serious trauma that she has not dealt with, and so she is using Vision's body as a proxy for her dead boyfriend and her brother. That's really creepy.
When Pietro died, Wanda was effectively adopted by the Avengers. She found this new surrogate family. Mm-hmm. When Endgame ends, she seemed okay there with Clint, but he left. He went back to his family. He didn't. Maybe he should have taken her with him. But everybody else. I mean, Travis, you're right. Everybody else had someone else to go with. Yeah. Wanda had nobody. So maybe she was okay with the high of, we just defeated Thanos. She feels like she got her revenge. But when she comes down from it, when she comes down from the adrenaline that they would have been feeling all that time, and then she just goes home and sits by herself, chills in her apartment by herself in the dark, listening to moody music probably. And it's like, she has nothing to do but miss the man that she loved and her brother that she lost. It's like they've never talked about her parents really before, I mean, a little bit in Age of Ultron, but not since. It's everything about her has been about Vision and Pietro. And she lost them both. Not to mention, for Wanda, her snapping is like every other week when it comes to the comics. I mean, she's always going nuts. So it's like, it just fits. Everything about this just fits.
Yeah, and I guess, and that's where the point where I do, not to defend them, but I bring up though, because it's tough I've been in the situation where when I criticize a Harry Potter movie, and then someone says, well, it's like that in the books. And I go, okay, well, then I'm criticizing that as well. And I think there's some people that go, oh, I don't want her to snap necessarily because, like I said, that trope. But I think it's just the thing of, it is something that is, me and Chris have talked about this in the MCU. Sure, we've had Civil War and stuff like that, but we've never had a hero kind of be, I never thought Downey was acting villainous in Civil War. I think in my opinion, he's misguided, but I don't think he is full on, doing things too selfishly. There's sometimes he is, but not to the extent of Wanda, where I feel like if she's taken over a town by herself, that is nowhere near anything that, to me, Iron Man ever did. Iron Man stuff was all indirectly his fault. He didn't and there's stuff you could argue, okay, yeah, sure, he had Vision watch Wanda, but very different than like mind controlling a bunch of people and taking them from their homes and
No,
throwing
yeah,
them.
it's not to this extent, and that's where if you look at, and I've said this over and over again, Marvel is trying, MCU, Marvel Studios, Disney are trying to show that we've done the standard superhero stuff.
Mhm.
You know, we can do that. Now we're going to look at to the ideas. I mean, you saw a little bit of that in Iron Man 3, him dealing with his PTSD from, the first Avengers movie, but not to this level, not to this extent. I mean, look, we got Moon Knight. We got someone with schizophrenia, bipolar, split personalities, you know, and just the other ideas of like what people deal with. You know, you're going to have Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, dealing with the idea of Islam, being an Islam superhero at that point. What does that mean in a, I know it's very rude, but it is still existing in a post 9/11 world where people look at, people of the Muslim faith incorrectly and just totally stereotype everyone at that point. That's going to be a big focus. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It'll be later in our stories this week of how that's going to focus on some serious real world issues when it comes to an African American taking on and becoming the new Captain America. They dealt with that directly in comics, and I'm so happy to see that they're going to be dealing with that head on in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Well, and I do still like, and because I just always waved the flag for it, but I still feel like that's one thing that Black Panther really did for them, that they made a film that, yes, there's a CGI battle that is for the soul of Wakanda, but really to me that film was about race and it's about much more deeper and real world issues. Now let's say if they did that and obviously had great success critically, box all this stuff, but let's say they did that and there's enough people that push back, but I just want you to stick to superheroes. I just want to have a fun time at Marvel. And okay, there's some people that are like that. That's fine. You don't have to watch those. But I think when they did that and it was such a hit, I think they went, we can do more of this. We can talk about more issues. We don't have to be as far as, and I'm going to say surface level, but like, I don't think in Thor, the very first Thor, that is just about a man trying to get his hammer back. There's no like big, deeper issues. Where even in Endgame, there is deeper issues in there. The MCU's evolved, and that's a good thing with this slate. And it's like, yeah, it's gonna get weird, but that's the same way I say with comics. As far as if something you don't like it, like this WandaVision thing, even then, these first 4 episodes to me have been a risk. They have been something completely different. I still feel like they always say like, oh, we're happy to start the MCU this way, but that's why I think Falcon Winter Soldier was the safer choice, because I feel like that is more regular MCU. Even though we may get some themes in there, it seems like it's an action movie. This is weird and wonky, but eventually, like comic books, if you don't like it, you don't read it, or you can wait for the binge. And I so far I think this experiment has worked out as far as the pacing of it and just the quality of the show, and of course the acting and all that.
Well, even going back to what you said about Black Panther, I don't think that movie hits it over the head. It's very much, yes, I think Killmonger, and it's a credit to Michael B. Jordan's portrayal of him. He is he's your quote unquote villain, but I view him even more as an antagonist at that point, just because he has a very good point. He has his issues. He has his obvious, his own PTSD of trauma of losing his father and basically being left basically on his own. But it's not trying to be preachy. It's just like, this stuff has gone on. You've hidden and you could have done something. We're going to do something now.
And it's lucky now that they bought Fox and they have X-Men and everything like that. But if they wouldn't have, and obviously they killed him off, he might come back. We'll talk about that. But like, Killmonger to me was the MCU's Magneto. As far as Thanos has that as well. But eventually Thanos, you get to the point where it's like, okay, this is a bit too much as far as I can't really believe you. But Killmonger to me was the equivalent, like the MCU's Magneto. And I think that's where that movie in particular show they can tackle a lot bigger issues. And I think I think I can see some people's worry of that trope, but I want to wait and see it out, because I think it is set up. Like I said, I don't think she got closure. And even then, we've talked about this before, Vision died, but for her, that was only 5 minutes ago. That wasn't 5 years like for everybody else. So, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's been a big talking point is those FBI, those sword files on everyone. That was a very, the whiteboard, the sword files. That was, I think that was a very cool, definitely pausing that sequence over and over again when I viewed it.
Well, I think the Agnes thing was cool, but everyone was like, okay, we kind of see the signs and we see where this could be going. Whether, like I said, I still wonder if it's red herring or not, but still, We could see the signs. I think Dottie, like we've talked about before, that was the big surprise. That why isn't she here? Agnes to me completely made sense. Like, okay, if she does become Agnes the Harkness and it is like this character and this big lineage, okay, this makes sense. But Dottie was to me, that was like there was like two curveballs in there, but that was like the really curvy one. And I'm very interested to see next week if we get any more of her, if that's still kind of off to the side for now. And yeah, I'm not sure. And I know Brent, you were saying the same thing on Squadcast as far as like what she could be. And like we've talked about this before, could she be a villain? Could she be the true Mephisto? Is again, I still think both of these have a potential of being like a red herring. But what are you viewing now after a few days after watching this episode?
I think with Dottie, we need to remember that out of story in the real, like the literal real world when they were writing it, they could have included her in that scene.
Yeah.
But the way the story played out, they did not see her yet when they made that board because it was after they made the board that Darcy sits down and says, "Oh, a new character. Wanda's at a new place. Who's this person?" And that's when they met Dottie. Now they did meet a couple other people who were really introduced in that same episode. So it's like they had seen part of the episode and then she walked away, did some work, and then came back. And I assume they just have these episodes playing on a loop over and over again, as because they mentioned they're recording them. So I don't know. Like initially when I first watched, I'm like, okay, why is Dottie not there? Is she the missing person? Because they didn't close that. So Jimmy Woo, as far as we know, somebody in this town is Jimmy's missing person. But then watching later, he did say it was a guy. So okay, probably not Dottie then. But there's a reason why Dottie was left off, just like there's a reason Agnes was included, but her name wasn't. I'm not entirely convinced that all of this is truly Wanda, like Wanda's the villain. She may very well be like, think back to Age of Ultron when she manipulated Hulk into going mad and fighting Iron Man. It was Hulk, but she was kind of behind it, right? This is Wanda, but somebody may be manipulating her. And I feel like that might be Agnes and Dottie. Maybe them both, maybe one or the other combination.
Yeah, and to your point, that's a good point to make. That Wu did say he's looking for a he, but it's interesting though. I kind of I found a story, and it's very interesting. Emma Caulfield, the actress who plays Dottie, revealed that in a story. I can't remember where it's from. I want to say maybe Screen Rant or one of them at that point. That she revealed that her role before she could get officially cast, Feige had to approve it. Her casting, and that says to me Feige directly involved. I mean, we know Feige's directly involved in something, but the fact that he calls that out specifically before she was officially cast, he had to approve her to take on the part. So
that's interesting.
It was Collider. Collider had that.
Collider had that. Okay, so Dottie, Agnes saying these lines. Dottie's the key to everything in this town. Dottie's saying the devil's in the details, Bev, and then Agnes says quietly, Wanda, that's not the only place he is. Either she could be Mephisto or an agent of Mephisto. Mephisto lured Wanda into this reality and manipulating her, as we're kind of saying, into creating children for him or her. There's Dottie. I don't know if she's Mephisto, but she could be an agent of Mephisto, maybe like Agnes. Don't know.
And I still think there's a chance that because if Wanda's doing this stuff that maybe Mephisto or Agnes, whatever, is taking advantage of the situation and they're doing something even worse and they're making it seem like, like almost using Wanda as a shield. So they could be there, but whether it's like even feeding off Wanda, something like that, where I could still see her being directly a villain or antagonist, but then someone is also doing something even worse and maybe that affects it, or he uses the kids or Vision or something like that to be like, hey, I'm doing this. You got to help me continue it, or it's gone. And Tony Walgera wanted to bring up that, we've talked about this before with Ralph. He's been mentioned many times. Still haven't seen him, haven't got even a glimpse of him or anything like that. I've still said before that one of my theories is that if that's Agnes, that maybe there was supposed to be a character named Ralph and she broke in and not even killed Ralph, but just subdued him so she could live in that home to get her eyes on Wanda, because that was the tip off for Geraldine, was like, she has no home. So if Agnes also had no home, maybe Scarlet Witch would pick up on that, or Vision, or someone else would. But I still think that's kind of my working theory. If Ralph is nobody, it's just that maybe they go to meet Ralph finally and he is dead or he is there. And that's when it's like, oh, she's not what she appears to be. Or yeah, it is. He could just be Mephisto, and we go in there and Sexy Devil's sitting there in his thong and he's wanting to make deals and everything. Like that's thing. Like
Burt Reynolds doing it at that point.
Oh man, yeah, just a sheep rug and it's
stash. Ralph could be the missing person though. He could be Jimmy's missing
Burt Reynolds.
Person no, not Burt Reynolds. Ralph could be the missing person. You know what? Burt Reynolds, for all they've done crazier.
Yeah,
they're gonna dig him up.
But that's been the fun. Hey, man, isn't James Dean starring in a movie here in the next 2 years? You never know nowadays. My God, but like, and that's been the funnest thing that I think. There's so many theories, and that's why I like the WandaVision creators saying like some of them are true and some aren't, and that's where it's like, well, yeah, that's the fun thing where it's like there's so much stuff thrown out there, and everybody has their thing. But to me, it's changed like week to week, and it's been a good experience that way. I wanted to ask you guys because I feel like this comes up every week, so I'm going to probably ask it every week because an actor just keeps saying it. But now it was Elizabeth Olsen's turn to say that there is a cameo or someone in the show that is Luke Skywalker level as far as an appearance. Brent, what do you think about this? Because we've heard one point Paul Bettany said like, oh, I shared scenes with an actor that I'd never worked with before. And then he was like, I shared scenes with the actor and it was like MCU game changing. Now we have Elizabeth Olsen saying, oh, Luke Skywalker, which obviously was like a massive talking point trend for days. Do you have a working theory as far as you like, do you think there's something, or do you think this is a case that they might be overhyping it? Like it is like, because to me, I think Strange is a big appearance, but if Doctor Strange is in the show, I don't say that was their Luke Skywalker. I don't think that's like the thing that's everything talking about. So where are you on this?
I do think it's Doctor Strange. No, I don't think that's Luke Skywalker level. I think when she said that, she's just hyperbolic or just using this as an example to say someone big. Because if she had said somebody big to the MCU that will be a big deal is going to make an unannounced appearance. Like if they had flat out said it that way and it was Benedict Cumberbatch, I think that would qualify. I absolutely do. And because we know that her next appearance is in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, to me, it does make sense. And thinking about, I can't speak to outside the MCU, but at least in the MCU, Vision and Doctor Strange have not shared a movie yet. Well, let me rephrase it. They have not shared scenes yet. They were both in Infinity War, but they have not been together. And so I'd have to verify their other projects, but that might qualify to fit both a big name coming, as she said, and someone that he hasn't worked with. So Doctor Strange is my current working theory of my realistic hopefuls. Let's put it that way.
Chris, where are you on this week 4 of surprise guest watch?
Yeah, I think when I mentioned, I think one of my factor fictions was it either last week or a couple weeks ago. At that point, I'd said either Loki or Doctor Strange would be it. And yeah, Doctor Strange, it's one of those things. It's more of just my expectation now as Doctor Strange, just because of the time. There's always something. They always do a good job with either the end credits or something at the end of tying these projects together at that point. And that's where I'm at. Would I love something really far out of left field that really kind of blows the door open at that point and moving it to a direction we wouldn't see? Sure. I like your prediction. I just don't know if we're that would be awesome.
Yeah,
I'm not going to take that away from you until you say it. So,
well, I'm still trying to do the Hail Mary down a touchdown going into the 20 seconds left of the game of Magneto, just because like I know so many people roll their eyes when I say that, and it's like, oh, they're not going to do that, but it's just like I just feel like they got the rights. If it's just a scene or a mention or something, they can easily pivot. I know it was a different situation. It was talked about for months, but look at Spider-Man Civil War. He wasn't in that movie till he was, right? It's the same thing like this is, to me, it's a very easy connection, even if it's just Eric Lencher. And I've seen other theories. I was talking about with somebody on Twitter as far as like they're throwing out like, okay, who could it be? Like Ultron, Quicksilver played by Peters, Thanos. To me, Thanos was like, okay, I could see that. That could be really fun. Like, let's say there's like a flashback or something like new scenes with Thanos, like, okay, that could be like a trending thing. Again, I don't know if Luke Skywalker, because I agree that I don't think Marvel has a Luke Skywalker, and if they did, it's either Hugh Jackman or Tobey Maguire, in my opinion, as far as the like legacy that's been around for a while, but none of them go up to that. DC, I would say it's Michael Keaton, the same thing. I think he's the closest to Mark Hamill as far as that kind of legacy and legendary thing, but I just think that's, if they aren't being hyperbolic, that's the only thing I can think of. I know people, because the rumors are saying, oh, they have to be talking about Evan Peters Quicksilver. I just like, even though he is a Fox X-Men character, I still just don't feel like he is the actor. He's the character's big enough to warrant the comparison to Luke Skywalker. If that's who they were truly talking about, I think it's very cool. And I think that definitely would trend and people talk about like, oh, there's a big surprise. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he's like, just like bottom tier, but I just think that when you use the words Luke Skywalker, one of the most iconic characters of all time, I agree, Brent, that we're probably in a situation where they're just trying to hype up the show and be hyperbolic, but it could be a chance that if we see somebody, oh, what's your name? Oh, my name is Eric Lencher. That is that, oh shit, like it, I don't know who it is. I don't know in the situation if it is a recasting or whatnot. If it happens, that I haven't worked out in my mind yet because I'm waiting for the Evan Peters thing to drop first. And if Evan Peters is Quicksilver, then I will, because I would prefer Fassbender because of his age, but then also it doesn't make sense for the story of his age because then you got to get all convoluted and be like, oh, there's some multiverse stuff and it was his dad. And then I think Ian's just maybe too old at this point if they want Magneto to be like a character that's going to be around for 20 years. So my brain still says no, but my heart says yes. And the way just they're talking about it. But again, I do agree with Brent that I think it's just promotion of the show. That's the talk of the town. And I didn't even read the question. Maybe they even asked it that way and she had to respond. But it is just like they do got to be careful because both her and Bettany are saying that. And you don't want to make expectations too high, and that's why I worry Strange would happen. That some people, if Strange is the pick, I could see a lot of people poo-pooing after like, oh, it was just Strange, even though that's a massive thing, him being over in the show. Yeah. But with them saying huge shock, Luke Skywalker, that's where you start being like, okay, careful, you're on the deep end of the pool, like I hope you can swim.
Well, I mean, I liked what Bettany said. It was someone that he's been looking forward to working with directly for a while. That plays a big part. I think that set expectations at a certain level. I think when Elizabeth Olsen says Luke Skywalker level, we have much higher expectations for that than we do when Bettany says it's someone he's been looking forward to working with for a while.
But then Bettany did double down in a different interview when he said like it would change the MCU forever. Oh. Now that could be Doctor Strange when it's like he's going to do some multiverse stuff, but it's like I think everybody takes it as like that must be X-Men, that must be mutants, that that has to be like the cherry, another cherry reference has to be the cherry on top of this cake. And I don't want to get too excited. I want to believe, but I don't think we're there quite yet.
To be the Punisher, come on!
Well, man, Frank Castle just goes in.
Ghost Rider. If you look at Evan Peters and like his role as Quicksilver, it's just not a big enough role. Mm-hmm. It's not. He is nowhere near that ballpark for the Luke Skywalker comparison. But yeah, what if? I mean, you mentioned Toby as someone who could be like that to Marvel. Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man 3. They seem to be working well with Sony right now. Maybe they're doing some kind of massively unprecedented thing, and they're just going to have Tobey Maguire. I mean, it's
oh my god, that would
I'm
be
just
crazy.
saying, like, it's all possible. And
and
you're right. It's like with Spider-Man and Civil War, like they had two scripts, they had two versions, one with them and one without. Because if Spider-Man wasn't in there, Ant-Man was going to be on the other side, actually. And so it's like they had all these different ideas. They could have easily had ideas. No, technically, Feige could not have anything written down until it was final, but that doesn't mean he didn't have the ideas. That doesn't mean he didn't, the second it was final, get on the phone and say, we have time, we can include this, especially, and you hate to think of anything coming out of the COVID delays as positive, but that did give them more time to shoot more scenes on closed sets indoors when it would be much easier to hide someone. I'm not predicting Tobey Maguire. I'm just saying there's a non-zero chance of it truly being somebody on that level.
Yeah, no, and you bring up a good point as far as, especially with COVID, you're going to have even a smaller crew. Sometimes you're going to have things that they can control the situation. And I too bad we're not in black and white, because if he was like the Pleasantville sort of thing, but yeah, imagine they're just living their lives and there's a neighbor and like, or Ralph is Toby for some reason, who knows, like, but that's very interesting. But yeah, and like you said, I always imagined that at some point Feige had like his board of where the MCU is going, but then there was a little side pocket of like the what if. I feel like Spider-Man was there, Fantastic Four, X-Men. It's the same way in sports all the time, where you're not allowed to talk to another team till your contracts have stuff like that. But then it's always revealed after, like, oh, there was a restaurant meeting or someone came over to each other's house, like, let's talk about the what if scenario. So I always felt like he had a same thing. Like, to be honest, like maybe he didn't, but I just give the guy enough credit from what he's done so far. Is when he gets asked after they purchase Fox, like, how you bring the X-Men to the MCU? Oh, we don't know. We have lots of options. We're thinking about it. that man knew 5 years before the purchase even happened how it would, if I were to ever get my hands on the X-Men, how would I bring them in? Yeah, sure, it shuffles, timeline shuffles, things like that, but I think he's always known how it's going to happen. Same with Fantastic Four. So I think even if this Magneto thing or some X-Men, if they were in there, they would transpawn into this. And I don't know. I'm waiting for that shoe. Like I said, I'm still also waiting for the shoe to drop where Evan Peters is not in this at all. And it's like Matt Smith in episode 9, where it's just like, it was a whole bunch of nothing. And like scoopers were wrong. And maybe there was something worked out and it didn't happen. It's like, oh, well, a lot of hype for nothing, but, we'll see. I'm waiting every week. I'm waiting for him to appear and it hasn't happened yet. I don't think it's this week, but never know.
Yeah. I mean, excuse me. We got a couple of we did get some answers with what's been going on in the sense of, I remember we were thinking the drones or the plane was Pym particles. No, it was just a drone at that point. But I like the idea that we see you go into this reality, things change, and especially the drone being in Captain Marvel colors. That was a nice touch. I did like the idea of supposedly like S-57. Issue number 57 of Avengers is the first appearance of Vision at that point. And so, but the Beekeeper, we see them in the suit at that point in the Beekeeper, outfit. I think I saw supposedly the Beekeeper is actually the Ice Cream Man in the third episode at that point. Supposedly that's where he has been replaced in that idea, because people are like, where'd the Beekeeper go? I think that's what I've come to the determination. He's the Ice Cream Man. So I don't know. I did like Darcy though, in the sense of saying that she's invested in the characters, invested in the show, kind of like we are. She's us in some way. She's the one writing down. She's the one writing down at the end of the first episode. In the booklet. That was a nice touch to see what was happening with that. And then the idea of the big thing, the cosmic energy, and how she's able to figure out and get the TV radio waves. And supposedly today the showrunner has said, no, that's not tied to Fantastic Four and the cosmic stuff or the astronaut program. And I'm like, okay, you may not know the full thing. I guarantee that the showrunner knows some stuff about the next steps, but him or her saying that anyone on this saying is not directly tied to Fantastic Four, they may not know. So right now, them saying no is not necessarily saying, oh, it has nothing to do. They're just not a part of that next project, that they need to know.
It was cosmic microwave background radiation, relic radiation of the Big Bang is what they said it twice.
Yes.
And the last time the Big Bang was talked about in Marvel was Wong telling Iron Man about the 6 elemental crystals that were, birthed at the Virgin Universe and hurtling across it, right? He was talking about the Infinity Stones. Wanda's power from either from or enhanced and unlocked by an Infinity Stone. I want to be clear there, because I think we're going to find out she had something the whole time. There's something to this. And then you add into it, they talked about a space program not being able to get enough astronauts. They have absolutely set themselves up to directly have the Fantastic Four come out of S.W.O.R.D. if they want to do. And Jack Schaefer may have nothing to do with that project, so she just wouldn't know. I'm not saying she's lying. She just wouldn't necessarily be told, because Marvel they don't even give the entire script to actors in the movie. So they're definitely not going to give, somebody who's newer to the franchise keys to the kingdom. And so you add this stuff together, and I feel like if they want to pull from it, there is groundwork they can do for the Fantastic Four. It's there. They don't have to, but it's there if they want to. And not to mention, I'm convinced that Miss Marvel is getting her powers out of this series as well.
Yeah.
She's in New Jersey, and Ms. Marvel, she's an Inhuman in the comics, but let's be honest, does that really matter with who she is? No, it just matters that she has powers. So she could get the same powers a different way, the embiggening powers, and be the exact same character.
Well, we haven't seen it yet, but lots of strong hints of possibly Monica getting powers as a result of what that point. So
she got him. She got
him. And the idea of when I talked about my fact or fiction, this reality altering kind of thing, her blowing up this whole thing of to your point, maybe this is how Miss Marvel gets her powers, is when this huge thing expands outward and blows up in the area. So
You're all right. I think all those are good theories. I have nothing more to add than that. I agree with the Miss Marvel thing. I agree with Monica. It's just that these ones seem that they're obvious, but in a good way as far as they're connecting the dots. You go, this makes sense, and I think that's what the show's done for the most part. Other than the stuff we're not supposed to connect the dots to, the stuff that we're not, okay, well, how's this happen? I don't know. Well, you'll find out hopefully.
yeah.
And we'll see, because next week we're going into in the 80s, right? That's where we're supposedly heading.
Yep.
So
Family ties.
Do you think it'll be back to the sitcom style, or do you think it'll be like 2/3, 1/3, a mixture of the two different sides of the barrier?
I want a mixture. I have tried my best to avoid. Obviously, if you don't know and you're on Twitter, there's leaks out there. So mute hashtags, stuff like that. I've luckily not been leaked that way. I know they put out that.
Talk to Brent. Brent's got a very good list.
Oh, I know. Brent's
50
blocked
terms.
5,000 words.
And he kept on coming out. Do you
50
think
different
what should we add? What should we add?
If it's even possibly relevant, I think Doctor Strange is a possibility. He is muted.
Well, and according to Tim Rumi, you should probably mute Spider Ham too, because that was his pick for the big shocking persons. You know, it's Spider Ham next on the list.
And Howard the Duck.
And Howard the Duck. You can never mute Howard the Duck. Don't put Howard the Duck in the corner now. But no, I would like it to be like a 2/3 and a 1/3. I would like to still get some sort of action, because I feel like I don't want to leave. I want the initial, like, Monica coming out and what was her experience and her talking to sword agents, but maybe that will be 2 episodes. So if it was my want, I would want, majority comedy and then the sort of stuff. But I think it's going to be almost all comedy, maybe barring a stinger at the end that's like 2 minutes or something like that. So I think it will be all the 80s sitcom, I think.
Yeah, I leaned into the idea that they want to keep on capitalizing on the present day. I don't think people are going to forget, but I think that they want to keep it fresh in their mind. So they need to have some part of this being it. And I think we're going to get comedy, but I think it's going to lean more towards drama at that point, because I think we're going to see more of Vision questioning. We're going to see more of kind of reality start breaking around. I think this is the episode where we're going to see Wanda's going to not be able to hold on to a lot of the reality, and it's like she's going to try to fix a lot of things or try to alter it, and she's going to start seeing it blow up in her face.
Maybe they'll do, everyone thinks of situational comedies, and that's what we've been getting, but sitcoms have another type of episode, especially in like the 90s, and now very special. Yes. Thank you. The PSA episode. So maybe we will get something a little more serious. I don't know. Vision's going to get a drug problem or something like that. Going to get high on caffeine pills. But I don't know. My prediction is kind of gum. Yes. I mean, they kind of did. My prediction is the 2/3, 1/3. I do think they're going to, I don't think we're going to go full on sitcom again for the entire time, but I think we will still live a little bit in that world, 10, 15 minutes of it, and then cut back and forth. I have a couple of those shots that goes from the 4:3 to the 16:9 and pulls out to seeing what Darcy and Jimmy are watching, and then zoom back in on it and pick back up after the whatever commercial break.
Yeah, particularly that if it's because the images we've seen, it's very much strikes. I was a big fan of the show Family Ties. Family Ties is very notorious for being a dramedy in many different episodes. So,
well, anything else to add on episode 4?
Is it Friday yet?
No, I can't wait.
When we finished watching, my wife said that Marvel makes me want to have a time machine so we can get to next Friday. I hear you. It'll come soon though.
It will.
Yeah.
Patience. We said we're not fans of the binge model for this show, so we gotta be
That's
patient.
right. I'm just savoring it.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are an ad-supported network, so we are going to take our first ad break right now before we get into some news, because we got some good stuff. This is helps support the channel, helps grow the channel, everything in between. If you don't like the ads, you can also go join the Phase 5 tier. Well, not the Phase 5 tier. Oh my God, I were all MCU in the brain there. But get the ad-free feed, and we don't choose the ads. I got a McDonald's ad yesterday. I was quite happy about that. So good on you. And then what? No, I wasn't. It was actually kind of obnoxious, but I was like,
is
the
McRib back? That's what
I haven't made a list, but anytime whether it's GV or GUA, there's always a new ad. I'm like, you know what? Cross it off. We've covered that brand, so that's nice. So McDonald's, we got you. So just prepare for that, and then we will be right back. All right, we're back, and we're gonna. If I looked at the rundown correctly, we're talking about some pretty, in my opinion, pretty big news as far as Disney making someone exclusive for the next 5 years. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, this dropped yesterday, or if when you're listening to this Wednesday, it dropped on Monday.
This
Uh,
week.
this week, sometime. Time is meaningless this day in COVID world. But yeah, Deadline broke the story that Black Panther director and co-writer Ryan Coogler has signed with Disney for I think it was 5 years at that point to develop a Disney series revolving around the Kingdom of Wakanda. The quote reads like this, and it's very interesting, and I'll kind of highlight it. It says, "It's an honor to be partnering with Walt Disney Company. Working with them on the Black Panther was a dream come true. As an avid consumers of television, we couldn't be happier to be launching our television business with Bob Iger, Dana Walden, and all the amazing people under the Disney umbrella. We look forward to learning, growing, and building a relationship with audiences all over the world through the Disney platforms. We are especially excited that we will be taking our first leap with Kevin Feige and partnering with Marvel Studios, where we will be working closely with them on select MCU shows for Disney Plus. We're already in the mix with some projects that we can't wait to share, and on behalf of his studio Proximity Media. So we're getting a Wakanda. We're getting shows,
Mhm.
led by Ryan Coogler.
First thing, huge get for Disney, because Ryan Coogler, to me, everything he's touched has been a massive hit. I love everything this guy's done. He's just, to me, if you were to make a list of the current directors right now working, he's definitely in the top 10, maybe top 5. He produced their first ever, the first ever Oscar nominated superhero comic whatever property ever. That was this guy. There was a lot to it as well, but he was the helmer of that. And to me, it's also just like another, for me, Ryan Coogler signing is just another, to me, I don't know, a little shot towards the always people go, oh, Disney, they always just control their directors, don't let them have freedom. Then you look at Ryan Coogler, that's a guy who's going to want freedom, want his word out there. And the fact that he'd sign with the Disney, to me, like puts a stamp like, no, like people have all different situations, but like I'm doing just fine here and I can make the art and stuff I want. So to me, that always just kind of hurts that argument. And two, I have some more to say on it, but I'll go around first. But as far as just Wakanda, just that show announced so far, perfect. I think that's something people were calling for after the movie. They want more of that world. I think, yes, there's a big hole in that world right now, but the world of Wakanda was fleshed out very well, and maybe even more well than anything else, like than Asgard or something like that in the MCU. As far as just like we want to see more in here, we want to see stories. And I just remember watching Black Panther and having those credits and like the whatever they do, like it's supposed to be the vibranium, but it's like the metal and it looks like sand, like just getting that opening and history of Black Panther and stuff like that. Like that was like, man, this world already feels special. Yes, it's on Earth, but already feels like a world away from world. So I think a Wakanda show, whether it's a Okoye being the lead, I'm not sure who else, like M'Baku, whoever it is, anything with Ryan Coogler, to be honest, I just kind of trust until he gives me something I don't. There's certain directors that I just trust. Like, I know people like to give him a hard time now, but Nolan is one of those. David Fincher is one of those for me. Like there's certain people that like Tarantino, when they put out something, I'm probably going to like it or at least say I enjoyed it. So Coogler is that for me right now. But Brent, what are you thinking about a Wakanda-based show?
That's been a show I've wanted on Disney Plus since we knew Disney Plus shows were going to happen. Wakanda, Warriors of Wakanda, Dora Milaje, whatever you want to call it, Star Okoye, Star M'Baku, like you said. If they want to play still with a Black Panther in a way that I think would work and not upset anyone, go to T'Chaka. Go in the past and tell a story about
that'd be good.
T'Chaka, or even farther back than that. It's not, you could go back 100 years or whatever. They could still, I feel like that's a way they could do Black Panther without people being upset that they're somehow dishonoring Chadwick Boseman.
Mm-hmm.
I was thrilled when I saw this news. And then I saw the quote from Coogler where he very clearly says shows with an S, and we have projects, plural. I'm like, more than one, even better. So it's like, not only are we getting the Black Panther movie, but we're getting presumably at least 2 Disney Plus projects coming from his group. I think this is fantastic. And it's crazy to me to think of like how many Disney Plus shows we know that are coming and like the massive variety they have in them all. Like it's really different. Like people who think, people like to say, oh, they made the same movie 23 times. It's like that criticism never held water. It really didn't. But it's even now, it's like we've got like 12 different projects and like 11 different styles or something like that.
And WandaVision that we just talked about is that proof right off the gate to show this is not. You could say sure you can make. I agree with you. That's like a false claim, but sure you can try to make that claim at the movies. All right. Once we hit to WandaVision, that's nothing like any of these movies we've gone before. Even if you hate this comedy style, it's like no, that's a big swing. And yeah, I think it just shows how much they want to be in the Coogler business right now. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you look at just the idea of the country of Wakanda and just the most technologically advanced nation in the world at that point, and now the world knows who and what Wakanda is about, kind of. So, do you focus on the characters you've introduced, like you said, M'Baku, Shuri, the Dora Milaje, or do you focus on the citizens in there? Yeah, Killmonger.
We
at
talked
that point.
about he would come back.
Yeah.
This could be a way to like see something he's been doing.
I was gonna throw because there has been rumors from sites that we have used before that I always say like the C plus tier, but someone did put out there that one of the series is Killmonger. Again, it's not a deadline, it's not a variety, take it with what you will, but with these rumors of him coming back with BP2 and now this, I could see it, and that is a like obviously I have Disney Plus, so everything's day one. But if they legitimately, let's say we get that investors call next year and it's like Killmonger the series, oh my god, that is going to be a great day in my household.
Well, it allows Coogler, depending, and not to say like what were some of his ideas if Chadwick was still with us at that point, and things that maybe he didn't feel like he's ready. He has to change his direction with Black Panther 2, but maybe he could take some of those ideas and put it into a Disney Plus show at that point and explore it from a different angle.
And I think it's funny, we were telling this before, but if you were to look at someone like Killmonger, that is a character that I think really warrants a TV show. When we talk about how layered that character is, you tell me he's going to get even just 6 episodes like Loki and Falcon Winter Soldier. Sign me up. That's perfect. I want that even more than a show. I don't want to be that guy nowadays because I feel like everybody just goes, I'd rather be a show. There's definitely some things I still want movie format that I think work better in format. But if I were to get, even just if it's half an hour episodes or whatnot, if I get 3 hours with Killmonger and Michael B. Jordan back in that role, I just think that is that's just really good because I still stand by. I think that was the best performance in the MCU, and I'm very intrigued now to see what they do with Black Panther because I think you and I talked about that, Chris, where I think we see the potential ending of Shuri being the Black Panther, but then Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger being, whether it's Golden Jagger or somebody on the side of like, he's a hero, but he's not a hero, but he's there to help if you need him. Like he's not Black Panther. He's not a king of Wakanda or anything, but he's associated with them and he can kind of come in and out even more so than Loki was, as far as Loki was pretty antagonist until Thor, my goodness, Ragnarok. So I think that could be a setup of Shuri's, Queen, Black Panther, whatever. And then he goes off on his own adventures, what they could be. I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So it's what comes out of this deal. So I'm guessing we're probably 3 or 4 years away at least.
Yeah.
Considering that he's gonna be deep into Black Panther 2, but again this is his production company. So I mean he's got some great people working with him. So like I said, I don't foresee us hearing official stuff for another at the earliest 2 years, probably within 3.
Do you think? Yeah, I was gonna say. Do you think there's any chance that one of these shows comes out before Black Panther 2? Because, like Brent's saying, if there was a prequel of T'Chaka, it just struck my mind. It's very similar to the Batman that we have right now, where you have Matt Reeves working on the film, but now you have Gotham PD like aside, and we don't know. It'll probably come out after the movie, but that's what this reminds me of as far as he's building out that world. I think there's a chance. If you were to ask me, I'd probably still say no, but there's a chance if he's involved in it, but lots of other people are directing it, producing it, stuff like that. I think there's still a chance, especially if it was a prequel or something like that, nothing that directly affected the Black Panther universe in the current day.
I'm not there yet.
Rule it out, but I would call fiction.
Yeah.
I think this one needs to. I think it comes out of Black Panther 2, and the only reason I say that is because I think Black Panther 2 needs to address the elephant in the room of Chadwick's death, and I think the first thing that needs to do that is a proper film, not a series, not taking away from what a series could do, but I think the first thing that we need to see is Black Panther 2, and then to see that journey, see how they're going to do it, and then we're more open to the idea of a series first.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah.
So, but all right, our next story. Falcon and the Winter Soldier composer teases less comfortable topics in the Marvel show. In an interview with Griffin Schuyler of Film Speak, the composer Henry Jackman addressed and discussed more serious themes of Falcon and Winter Soldier and how the episodic format has allowed these themes to flourish. He said, because of the slightly different format of having 6 hourly episodes, that's more real estate. So there's a bit more opportunity to go down the road into the psychological drama and explore backstories because you get more space to do that in. He continues on saying, in this particular series, there's a very much untrivial and serious issues, particularly now more than ever, about what it means to hold the shield and what kind of person should ultimately be holding the shield with the history of the country and how African Americans would feel about being a Captain America or not. There's weighty issues. It's still entertaining. It's not deathly serious seminar about political history or the United States of America, but it definitely touches on these less comfortable, important things that give rise to some of the really quite impressive performances. And so, what we've heard rumored, especially with, stuff that Anthony Mackie has talked about, things that we've seen leaked, the idea of possibly Elijah Richardson playing the grandson of the first Captain America, Isaiah Bradley. That is going to be a huge part, and I love the idea. I'm looking forward to seeing that portrayed in this, in the wrestling with the idea. I still think he's going to end up with the shield. I think, Falcon is going to be our Captain America at the end of the series, but I think this is going to touch on some very uncomfortable things for some people to deal with and to kind of MCU kind of confront. But I like hearing that they're not going to step away from it.
Yeah, first of all, I was just surprised Henry Jackman said so much about it. Like, not that he gave any spoilers, but it was just like he went off and they couldn't stop him, and he gave a lot of stuff. And no, I think to me this just goes back to the quote. I think it was pretty much a month or two, maybe a little longer, because it's all blended now, but not too far after Endgame when Anthony Mackie was talking about the role, and he just said, like, what would it be like for Captain America to be a black man? And that's what we want one of the things of the show to be about. I'm paraphrasing, but something like that. He said those terms. And then now we've joked about in our chat that he's really backed away from I don't think I'm Captain America per se. I'm more just like, what happens with the shield? It's like, okay, so you everyone got excited about donning him Captain America, and then like, oh shit, the show's about like, are you gonna really be Captain America? Could you reel that back a bit? He will be Captain America, and I think it's a great choice, and I think that this is a great choice. Again, it's funny we keep doing flashbacks, what we talked about. To me, this is the Black Panther effect again. That's one of the reasons why I think it's the best MCU movie, because it tackles those issues and it does it very well. And I think Anthony Mackie's right. It's something we talked about on our Wonder Woman 1984 review. Lisa brought that up, but sometimes these big movies put stuff in the past, because when bad stuff's happening, they go, oh, well, that was in the past. None of this is happening now. Lots of bad stuff is still happening now to multiple races, genders, people that are in smaller groups. So it's a thing that is current, and it's something that I don't want to ever hear that I don't want politics in my like media or whatnot, because your favorite writer and directors and artists and book writers have all been inspired by these things. I remember Neil Druckmann, who made Last of Us 1 and 2, and someone said, oh, it looks like you're putting a lot of politics in the last part 2. I don't think I'll play. He's like, well, you shouldn't have played the first one, because that's what it was all about. And that's the thing where it's like, with these situations it is. And yeah, I'm looking very forward to it. I think this is what we all want, and I think this will be, like I said, I've said before, and I don't mean to diminish it, I do think it will be more actiony, but like he said, with the 6 hours, if this was a movie, I feel okay, it's going to be more just action packed. But I think half that series is going to be okay, action packed. Another part of it's going to be the mystery intrigue, and then another part is these real world race issues. And I think, yeah, the government's going to say, oh yeah, we don't want you to be him because you don't have the super soldier serum,
but we're not racist. But we're not racist.
But exactly, that's what it's going to be. And it's going to be like, really? Like, is that how it's going to go? And yeah, I can't wait. And this is the best thing that, like, we're talking about this. It's February 2nd right now we're recording this, and this show comes out next month. Next month it comes out. We still have WandaVision, and then 2 weeks later this. I'm so happy that I can actually get excited for this thing that's like actually about to be in my grasp here. So I can't wait.
Every time I read one of these things of Mackie trying to walk back the whole Captain America thing, I think back to San Diego Comic-Con 2019 when he went on stage with the shield in
With
his
the
hands.
shield.
I'm like, really? And how he's talked about being a black man and being Captain America, and his kids getting to see that, and him getting to be that black Captain America. I'm like, just come on. This is like She-Hulk all over again. Cat's out of the bag. Just let it go.
Embrace it like you want to.
Yeah, and it's like, to me, it's like, I don't think it's a big twist that he's gonna become Captain America, you know, because like I love, like, they're just like, well, he never accepted the shield. It's just like, to me, him saying I'll do my best, he accepted the shield. He said he was gonna do his best. So even if he were to die the first month, like maybe Joseph Gordon-Levitt does in Dark Knight Rises, taking over Batman, it's like, he tried. So it's just like this like reworking of like
Cap gives it to him. It's like, oh shoot, nope, not mine. I didn't touch it.
Yeah.
Steve literally tells him it's yours. You know, he says it feels like someone else's. It isn't. It's yours.
It's yours. See, I etched
I'll
it
do
on
my
there.
best.
Yeah.
It's like, spoilers. He's Captain America. In game already told us.
Yeah.
Shh! Don't tell anyone about a movie that came out a couple of years ago.
I know, little indie film. Nobody saw it.
No.
Yeah. So we'll head back to Black Panther, and you know we've kind of talked about this in theory, but we haven't heard the man of the hour talk about it. Michael B. Jordan in People Magazine being asked, you know, about like his time on Black Panther and his obviously his time with Chadwick Boseman. He said that's something that is very, very near and dear to my heart. A lot of obvious reasons. I had a really tough year losing somebody that was close to me, and what it means for the franchise was devastating. And then asked, you know, of his interest of possibly ever coming back, especially for the 2022 sequel. He said, but being in that world of character I loved playing and working with writer-director Ryan Coogler and all that good stuff, it's family. We created a family over there. So to be able to be in that world is something that I think will always be on the table in some capacity, end quote. So now we're playing the game.
But
welcome
I like this
welcome
game.
to the show.
I like this game because I like this game more than the just flat out denial. To me,
True.
it's just like, it's even the same thing with Chris Evans' tweet. I know when he says like news to me, I still think him not quoting a single article is easily, he can just write that off. So I like that this is like, hey, I'd like to return and maybe I will one day. So he's not lying. He's not stringing us along. I don't expect him to be like, yeah, I start shooting in a few months. I can't wait. Oh yeah, and Dr. Doom's the villain. Dr. Doom's the villain. Oh, and Anthony Mackie is Captain America. Thanks, People Magazine. I'll see you later. Like, I like this as far as the coy, you know, we'll see what happens. Same thing as Keaton when he got asked about it. He was just like, oh, we're talking about it. It's, you know, figuring it out. We'll see. I like that better because it's like, I don't know, because it's just like, because you just know, oh, we're going to get this, like, he's not in the movie. He won't be in Black Panther 2, says Michael B. Jordan. Lisa's like, okay. And I think he, like,
I'm not Khan.
Yeah, well, you know, yeah, that's another thing. But, yeah, no, I do believe he is in it now with these rumors, and I'm just still curious at how they bring him back because there's multiple ways, and I think it's I trust them to do it, but I am still curious of how they do it, and hopefully they do it well.
Yeah.
He's just going to end up being in an episode of What If. We're just going to see him back there.
I'm happy to be back in the world, guys. You know, yeah.
I told you I was possibly on the table, and here we are. Hope you enjoyed it.
Oh,
Say
yeah.
what table?
Yeah.
Exactly. So speaking of playing the game, Morbius star Jared Leto says Marvel's Blade could cross over with as an anti-hero. Please watch the video because my lovely co-hosts have the same reaction as I had when reading this article.
Sure he does.
During a recent interview on the Late Late Show, musician Reggie Watts asked Jared Leto if he could see Blade and Morbius getting together. Leto left the door open by replying, you know, that is a good question, and I could see that happening in the future. I do. I can see that happening. Yeah. To which I then think of SNL. Yeah, that's the ticket. Yeah. You know, could I see this? Sure. They have had it happen in the comics. They do leave it open as a possibility. I still need to see what Morbius is about before I feel comfortable with this idea.
Well, Chris, haven't you heard? According to Jared Leto, Morbius is the movie that the world needs right now.
I'm sorry. I'll still go back to watching the Dark Knight trilogy. That's the hero I need right now.
So I gotta explain this for people that have never listened to Geek First. Me and Leto have, and it's just a one-side thing because he has no fucking clue who I am, which is good because I'm not a weirdo who goes and tags him in tweets and stuff like that or anything. I'm not like one of those people. Jared Leto's Joker
There
to
goes
me.
half our audience. Sorry, guys.
If there was an eighth sin in the world, Jared Leto's Joker to me would be the eighth sin. It was an assault to my senses, but I'm very excited to see what he's going to look like and hopefully portray us in the Snyder Cut, maybe the Ayer Cut one day. That's great. I'm all open to different versions and everything, but I say this in the best way because all of us can be this, and I've even said this before. I can be an asshole. Jared Leto to me, I think he's a very talented actor, but he's also for me a little pretentious. And that quote about Morbius the other day was just like, why does the vampire movie need to be the world movie that never needs to see? And same thing of like, sure, Jared Leto would like for Blade to be in, like do a crossover stuff like that, but it's like you guys gotta earn that, or we gotta see that. And it's just so weird because we've talked about this on almost, I think, every podcast associated with like the network, you guys on Squadcast, Fans About Boards, everything is like quantifying what success is for a movie nowadays, right? And with Morbius, I think Jared Leto just dodged such a bullet with COVID because anytime that this movie misperformed, like, oh well, the pandemic, blah, blah, I still think Morbius was going to bomb so badly. Yes, people bring up Venom, but I just feel like Morbius did not have a chance in hell. I really, because vampires aren't that cool. I don't think like the Sony universe is that cool without Spider-Man, maybe barring Venom because he looks cool. And I honestly don't think Jared Leto's that big of a star.
If Morbius sparkles, maybe.
Maybe, but you know what? I don't think he didn't look like he was sparkling in that trailer. He looked very, very pale. So, and I think Jared Leto is a known name, but names don't bring in movies. I don't think Jared Leto was a person that's going to bring in $1,700,000,000 movie. So, sure, does Jared want this? Great, that's fine. Go check out my review of The Little Things. I thought he did a really good job there. He's a really good actor. I just think that he gets a little high on himself, and I don't know. I let me see Morbius and we'll come back to this. But I think it's a lot. We haven't even got a Blade movie yet, you know. But of course, the interview asked, so he has to answer. Everyone, go check out the Spider-Man animated series. There's a great crossover episode with Blade and Morbius and Spider-Man and Felicia Hardy, and great stuff there. So that's all I have to say about Mr. Leto. Brent, what about you?
Remember towards the later years of Shield, or even Runaways or Punisher, and they'd be like, Loeb is basically like, yeah, it's all connected, we swear we're a part of them too, right? And it's like the little brother just trying to follow along with the big brother that everybody actually likes. That's kind of the feeling I got here. The only difference is I do think that there is something with Sony and Marvel right now beyond the MCU Spider-Man titled movies. I really do think that, you know, there was the stuff about the Olivia Wilde movie, and there's the about, you know, don't want to upset Kevin, and there, I truly believe there is something more, and that we are probably going to see Venom related to the MCU. Like I really think it's going to happen. Whether or not it's my preference, that's a different discussion, but I think it's going to happen. Morbius, I think, is going to get in by association. They're going to tie him to Venom. And we already know they're including Michael Keaton in there. Yep. Sure, they could ignore it if they want to, but I don't know. And you're absolutely right, Travis. This movie was not going to like break the bank or anything like that. And now, because of the pandemic, there will be no way to measure it. There just won't be, because when it only brings in $100 million, everybody's going to say, myself included, you will hear me say, yeah, but the pandemic. So it's like, we don't know what it would have done. But yeah, sure, Venom made a lot of money. Venom made huge, did great. Did you really hear Sony talk about the success of Venom? No, because they got away with one. Because they made a movie that wasn't very good, and they know, like, it's like you get pulled over and you don't get the speeding ticket, and you're like, oh man, I really
100%.
skated by on that one. They know they have to step up their game, and I think they are. Like bringing in someone like Andy Serkis, they are stepping up their game for the second one. Morbius,
I mean, even Tom Hardy said it. He wasn't, you know, he's gone on record of that. Many
I like
choices.
The Morbius trailer. I think the trailer looked interesting. It's like, you do look, I mean, yes, but do I think you're ready to play in the big leagues with the MCU? No, not yet. I think you need to let some Marvel execs, some MCU execs get in there and get a little bit, let him turn in some notes, and actually implement some of those notes, and then we can talk. Because casting wise, Jared Leto as Morbius, sure, I totally see it. I don't think it's bad casting at all.
Well, apparently he finds a lot of similarities in his life with Morbius. There was another quote like that too.
I am shocked to hear that. Absolutely shocked.
I said this on SCS, pre-pandemic and during the time. Morbius wasn't a movie I was excited about necessarily. The trailer was cool. They didn't drop Michael Keaton in there just because it was a cool thing to just do. There was a reason behind that. So
yeah, it was like, look, we have them too.
Yeah, they see, I can be cool too.
I still want to live in the world though where it wasn't cleared and Kevin Feige woke up to this trailer and he's like, what the hell is going on?
I would love to know Kevin Feige's reaction. He knew about it.
Who signed off on this?
When he found out, who had to tell him? How mad? I would love to know his reaction.
Jared Leto.
No, it's that GIF that you see of Kevin. It's that GIF that you see him with his eyes wide like that. But I'm looking forward just to see what it is at that point and what this could be. But it's one of those. Is Jared Leto trying to have Inception with Kevin Feige? Here's go.
Yes.
That's not a bad idea. I thought of this. I totally brought up this idea
because Kevin Feige never would have thought of pairing the living vampire
against Blade.
Before. Nobody's ever done that.
I think when it comes down to it, could and will this happen? Possibly, but I want to see a Blade. I want to see a Blade movie and a Blade show, whatever, Blade movie before I saw Morbius. Again, I like Blade as a character a lot more than I like Morbius. But again, it's more content. I'll wait for it. And whenever it decides to come out, because gosh knows Sony keeps on pushing their slate more and more down the line.
Well, they don't have a service to drop it on, so
no, they choose not. Probably, they choose not to partner with a service.
One.
I don't like
shelling out $200 million for this one.
Yeah, well, maybe Jared Leto just needs to start sending Kevin Feige vials of his blood or something to convince him. Something like that to really get in the character, show that he's serious. Real katanas and I still wonder with Sony and this working relationship as far as. It's weird because it's Sony, but I still wonder if we live in a world where somehow this and Venom 2 end up on Disney Plus, not in the sense of being there, but if they have to go with some streaming service, that makes the most sense to me. It really does. It's a Marvel affiliate one. I'm sure they paid something, but I don't know. It is interesting. And I don't know if me and Christopher is on air, but it's one of these things that it's strange too, that now if everything was according to plan, which I doubt is, Venom goes before Morbius. Every other time they've always delayed Venom and then Morbius. This is the first time they've swapped. So they've done a Shang-Chi sort of Eternals thing with it. And maybe it has nothing to do with it. I still want to know too, do these movies have to be out before Spider-Man 3? Because if that's the case, I'm going to be pissed because that means that means we're going to have to wait to see these two. If there's just some crossover or something to do with let's say Morbius has a role in Spider-Man 3 or something like that. That's my big worry, because I know I'm very it's dumb of me to think that Spider-Man 3 is going to stick on December, but just for my personal self, I just want it. I just so badly Tom Holland posting all this stuff about this great day of my career, but I just want all these people. Apparently Andrew Garfield's rude when you deliver him pizza. That's great, but I just want to see these three Spider-Man.
Apparently not very nice too, according to that guy.
Well, that's what I said. He was rude. Yeah. So apparently he screwed up the order or something. So either way, he's in Atlanta, Georgia, eating pizza. So I just want to see this movie, and I don't want Venom and Morbius to be the cause of us having to delay it. I really don't.
We have to acknowledge the pun master himself, Tim, just put in there. I certainly hope Morbius doesn't suck.
There we go.
I love it.
I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see, but we'll end the news on a very cool story that Kat Denning shared about how kind of her role expanded in Thor from what it originally was. So she talked about with the latest episode of Keep It podcast from Crooked Media that she had been friends with Natalie Portman for a while, and it was kind of just a random connection, and they became very good friends and close friends. And when she got put into when she got cast in Thor, she knew that she was only going to be in for 2 scenes. And so she showed up to, the table read and rehearsals at that point, and Natalie hadn't been there, so she wasn't saying too much. And then Natalie walks in, sits right on Kat Dennings' lap, and it's like, they have this, everyone sees the friendship. The writers start seeing the friendship, and they start adding in more scenes because they just have really good chemistry. So she kind of basically says, I kind of owe my extended like stay in this universe to Natalie. And I thought that was kind of a cool story, just to kind of see how things like that happen, and that she wasn't trying to use Natalie Portman's, star power. It just kind of worked in her favor, guilty by association.
Kevin, I guess maybe Darcy and Jane could have some more scenes, just start pulling the Jared Leto thing. But no, it's a cool story. And it's just funny because this has been like a recurring thing a few times in the MCU, bring up Natalie Portman as far as like influence and maybe lack thereof, because that's part of the falling out she had with Thor Dark World, right? Patty Jenkins was supposed to direct that movie, and they told her that. And then the rumor was that she found out about like not through, them, like through kind of a second. So it's like she wasn't told she wasn't directing. It's like, okay, so she.
And then you started reading the script of Dark World. It's like, oh, good God.
And if you look at Natalie Portman in Hollywood, she has big influence as well. So that's a cool story. It was not disappointing, but I heard that her in an interview today, I think it was with Brandon Davis, saying that she's likely not in Thor Love and Thunder. So I hope one day we could maybe reunite some, get Stellan Skarsgård back as well, like kind of reunite some of those original people. Because for a while, I don't think it's in there, but I think I loved like the two movies in the MCU that I loved a lot more than other people were The Incredible Hulk and the original Thor. The original Thor for a while was in my top 10, maybe top 7 MCU. I loved that movie. I thought it was done so well. I thought Branagh did such a good job, and I understand people's dislike of Darcy. I just don't have that dislike. I like her as a character. She's not like one of my favorites or anything, but that's a cool story. And I'm glad it worked out and good for her. Cause like we talked about, it's fun that she's back and we can refer her. And I hope this is not the last time we see her, unless Wanda pops off and destroys her head or something, which that case, then sorry, Darcy, but
yeah, well, all right, we come to the end of the news. A little bit light news, but some things to chew on. So we'll see what next week WandaVision brings us, because it always seems like a good WandaVision episode starts bringing out other stories at that point. So
yeah, well, interviews and whatnot. So we're going to take our final ad break here, and then we're going to talk about some Fact or Fictions and some Comic Book Club and all that good stuff. So we'll be right back. And we're back here to talk about some polls. Let me get them up here. So last week was Chris's turn. Hydra will be making a return to the MCU, but their rise will be in small moments throughout Phase 4, with being a big part of Phase 5. 73% fact, 27% fiction. I was surprised by how big a fact that was, to be honest. I thought it'd be a bit closer, but I guess we got, trailers right now. Wandavision, Hydra coming. Brent, where were you on that one?
Fact. I went with fact.
There you go. And then where are you there? WandaVision will end with the alternate reality consuming all of reality and the multiverse being blown wide open. 62% fact, 38% fiction. I went on the fiction route because I just thought, they might start a little smaller and go that way now. Chris, you were the fact. Brent, where were you on that?
Fiction on that one.
And then finally, there will be at least one cameo in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness that will miraculously remain secret appearance and will be a game changer. 92% fact and 8% fiction. I'll have to look at the history boards, but that might be our biggest slum one way or another. 92% fact. But I think we all have faith that they could pull it off. I know Red Skull wasn't like the massive game-changing cameo, but that was one of those times where that was a secret. They did with Luke Skywalker, so they could find a way, and maybe it's a Magneto, something like that.
Yeah, take notes from the Masked Singer and the Masked Dancer. I don't know much about those shows. I just figure that they don't know the guests, and they put them in a weird mask. Why not?
Because of football, I learned that they made a Masked Dancer, and I couldn't believe it. I thought it was just Masked Singer, but no, there's people dancing now, and I don't know what's going to be next. Masked Fighter or Masked Hip Hopper? I don't know, but
Hip Hopper.
Now, Brent, you said you had one. Did you just have one?
I do. I have one for you.
Yeah, and then I have three others. So you go first, sir.
All right. We will see the Jameson broadcast from Far From Home where he outed Peter again in another project. We will see somebody else watching it.
Ooh. So is that in the MCU or all of Marvel as we're talking about?
I don't mean in Morbius.
Yeah, well, that's what I was because think about it.
Morbius is probably in Morbius.
That's what I was thinking.
But I was thinking
okay.
In the MCU. Let me clarify. In the MCU. We'll see Bucky watching it or something.
It's tough because do we know? Because I do lean more towards fact because I feel like it's a big point. We have to see it, but at the same time, is it that thing where Sony still keep it aside a little bit, like don't put in another one? Do we don't know a date of Falcon Winter Soldier as far as when it takes place in the timeline yet? Do we?
No, not yet.
No, so that's where
Not-
it's tough
yeah.
of like what happens if it is before Far From Home again, like WandaVision. I was thinking, oh, we could see at some point a WandaVision because we know Spider-Man, Doctor Strange are all tied together, but it's like, no, we might not actually see it yet. So I'm I'm gonna actually say fiction because I think the timelines might mess it up to the point where once we start getting in that timeline, the issue might already be resolved in Spider-Man. So I will say fiction, not a strong fiction, but I will say fiction nonetheless.
I'm thinking about like the shows that are coming out and where it could fit in. Falcon Winter Soldier, it's just hard for me to see how it fits in necessarily. I know it's not like it doesn't have to be a big plot point, but like you said, just happen to be listening to it, hearing it at that point. I could see it in Loki. I could possibly see it in his traveling and something like that, and popping into there at that point. So I'll say fact, but it's a very, very not a firm fact on that. But I could see it seeing it in Loki. I don't see it in any other property right now outside of Loki.
I'm going fact on it, and I think we could see it at any time as one of those points where you can sync up the timeline. Like we know where we are exactly because we just saw that broadcast play. Like it feels like one of those things.
Yeah.
Heinz said, "What year is the end of Far From Home?" Well, isn't it something like
2024.
Yeah, I was gonna say because like in MCU at Endgame, it was 2023, the present day, and if it's 8 months later, so yeah, there you go, 2024. My first fact or fiction has to do with a story that we actually didn't talk about today because we have other news and whatnot, but was the Hugh Jackman Deadpool sort of thing and everything like that. Ryan
Oh yeah,
Reynolds.
I totally that's me. I blew past that one for
I was
whatever
on, but that's
reason I
fine.
did.
I got a fact or fiction about it, so we can
Yeah.
quickly talk about it. But
Yeah.
like Ryan Reynolds revealed that Deadpool 3 before Fox was bought by Disney was going to be a road trip movie with him and Logan. And then people said, is he lying, telling truth? Who I think was Screen Rant, and he replied underneath, I'm not lying. So
Yeah, 'cause
this is
he
one
could
you
be
can go
lying
back to.
there.
Yeah, he could be lying there. This is one that like I've said to these guys, I hope he's lying because it's just a soul crushing one. Because if you go back and listen to me on Geekverse, like from Deadpool movie 1, I was like, he has to be in Deadpool 2, meaning Hugh Jackman. He has to they gotta do it. They gotta do it. Yes, because I love their back and forth in comics, but also just their back and forth with Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. And if it was this close, I still wish Fox was never bought and they did the partnership with Spider-Man because I like. It's changed a bit now because let's see Deadpool 3 because now that I know, okay, it is going to be rated R and stuff like that. Okay, we'll see. And I want to see what they do with X-Men, but I still have it's still been a hard pill for me to swallow. Is like Marvel, favorite film was Logan. That was a non-Disney one and not anything against Disney, but just like seeing that like Fox was still doing good stuff over there. So, and then, yeah, you got, Dark Phoenix and Apocalypse and stuff like that. But so I crushing, but I hope there's some. So my factor fiction is Hugh Jackman will appear in Dead Man 3. Fuck, this is not DC now. He will appear.
Dead Man 3. You mean the first? Where the first one others coming from?
JJ's like, screw Justice League Dark. I'm just doing Dead Man 3. It's like, okay, but no, he will appear in Deadpool 3. So it doesn't even have to be Logan or Wolverine. Just Hugh Jackman in general will appear as in filmed footage, as I always say, not like the People's Magazine Sexiest Man. Like Hugh Jackman will film a scene for this movie.
I'll go with fact. I think if we're not necessarily pulling the full Logan at that point, I think it's just one of those things that he's been meta in both films, making references, making allusions, and things like that. I think it's kind of like what you're saying, Kevin Feige making an appearance in the MCU. I think it's one of those moments, those meta moments that's perfect for Deadpool.
Maybe together. Maybe it's Hugh and Feige all together, and for some reason, What about you, Brent?
I'm gonna go with fact, but maybe it's just some wishful thinking because Logan isn't at the top of my list, but the Deadpool movies are for the Fox universe. I mean, they are my favorite two movies. Is the two Deadpool. I adore those movies. So, and Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are absolutely hysterical. Like their whole, their rivalry. It's amazing to watch it when they do that stuff. So it does feel a little bit like the one that got away. Not having the two of them together. We'll see. Maybe we'll get some allusion to it. Hopefully we do. Hopefully even just a scene, just one scene, and that would be enough.
it's one of those things that like you said, it's very cool to watch it. Feige pays attention to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He knows exactly. So it would be a cool thing that let's just do it. It's fun.
And that did it was good because it's for Bell Let's Talk Day, and he did it on purpose. But that did create a huge buzz that day of everybody was covering that as far as top websites, stuff like that. YouTubers were all what this could have been, everything. I think it could even be. I've always pitched for years that I don't even need. I would have loved him being Logan. I still think Hugh Jackman could just appear as Hugh Jackman. I would love if, let's say, Deadpool is doing he's driving on a highway. He sees Hugh Jackman looking for a ride. He pulls over, and Hugh just goes, "I'll catch the next one," and then he just drives away, kind of insinuating yeah, this could have happened, but nah, I'm good, and then drives away. And it's to say, I will pitch this till the day I die. If it's not them as their X-Men characters, I don't know why no studio has sat these guys down, throw them a bunch of money, and be let's do a buddy cop movie, you two, hour half done. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet, why they haven't done it. I think I don't think stars by themselves necessarily sell movies, but I think combinations of stars do. And I think if you saw Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds together on a poster, schlocking and being oh, I hate this guy, you'd be I want to see this. So hopefully it'll happen. Maybe 20th Century will do it. I don't know. This is another Deadpool centric one. I don't know why I was on Deadpool kick, but I was. More than 2 Deadpool characters from the original 2 movies will appear in Deadpool 3. The reason I went 2 is because I kind of feel I could be wrong, but I feel a Mulligan is Vanessa. I feel some way she could carry over, or they'll tie that up. And then there's maybe one more. So that's what I'm saying. More than 2 characters from his original movies will appear in the MCU Deadpool 3.
So a minimum of 3, more than
2? So fact or fiction, or sorry, fact more than 2 will be. So it'd have to be 3 characters for you to say fact, fiction less than 3.
You want to go, Brent?
Not really, but oh, this is hard. I'm going to say fiction because I think Vanessa might be the only one to come over. I don't see them sticking with the same Colossus. Maybe Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Maybe.
What about Cable? That's tough, right?
I would love for Brolin to be the MCU's Cable. And just timeline stuff, shenanigans, whatever. Who cares? You don't have to explain it. He's Cable.
Yeah.
You look really familiar. I would love it for that to happen.
Because in my mind,
I don't think he's in this one because I don't see it becoming Deadpool and Cable or Cable and Deadpool, whatever the comic was. So I'm gonna say fiction, but I'm not feeling good about it.
The other person that the reason why I say more than 2, why I'm going to say fact is because one, I still think he could say bye to that universe somehow. And that's how we see a collection of those characters. And if they were to bring over anybody, I think Vanessa, but I also think Dofinder is a top candidate for coming over because it's just it's such a little minor role that I don't think Feige's gonna be this will break my canon. No, he's just a taxi driver.
Definitely won't break the bank on the pay.
Well, yeah, he's just a taxi driver that has good chemistry with Ryan Reynolds. So it's that's where I think all it takes is one more. I'm fact on it. It's not a strong fact, but I think Vanessa's unless they literally just start the movie and he in 2 lines writes away that whole his whole franchise. But the thing is, they keep saying Deadpool 3 in MCU, and obviously we're still early on, but it's not Deadpool MCU movie. They keep talking about the 3rd Deadpool, so it's if it's a 3rd, it has to have some carryover, unless you're a James Bond film in the 60s and 70s. But Chris, where are you on this? You got 1 fact, you got 1 fiction. Where are you?
Yeah, you bring out a good point, a Dopinder and Vanessa, but I would say, and again, this is it's hard saying Colossus outside of kind of the scenario you painted of him saying goodbye to this universe, in the sense of just because if we haven't really introduced mutants yet, but Colossus had been in the first one and the second one, I'm going to lean fact, but he's not going to have a big role. It's just going to be him kind of crossing over and universe. I think just because he's been in 2 movies at that point, it'll just be a very quick thing.
I'm just so excited for once they start production on that movie, just to see what it's about. And that, because now it's if that obviously doesn't sound like that is the plot, because he said before they bought, what is the new plot of the 3rd one? Like I said, I hope my pitch is right of him just trying to get in the MCU. The Fox universe is literally closing in on him and he has to get out of there with Vanessa. I think that would be fun. I that's what I want. He wants to be
all the Fox properties behind him. Nope, you're not making it. I'm getting in.
Yeah, they're just that'd be so great. Maybe that's how he fights Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman runs up and he's like, one more film. He's like, no, you've had your time. And he just like kicks him out.
This
Like,
is mine.
yeah, that would be so good. And then you have like Daphne Keane, like just fuck up Ryan Reynolds a little bit. Like, oh, it would be so good. I hope that's a good thing with all these, if with Toby and stuff, like those doors are all open now with the other movies. So yeah, I'm just so excited for Deadpool 3. And then this one's for my talking about rivals, the worst man in the world. This one's for Taylor, just scum of the human being planet. Ghost Rider will debut in the MCU, not in a solo project. So the first time we've seen will not be Ghost Rider Disney Plus series, Ghost Rider film. It'll be in something else. I'm a full fact on this one. I just feel like they're not. I know some people have even brought up the whole thing of like, for a film, it would never happen because like in China, you can't have Ghost Rider because he's like a ghost and a demonic figure. And now there's Disney Plus, but I just feel like he's a character that is.
They're going to have a lot of problems coming up in Marvel at that point. They're going to have a lot of problems.
Oh, yeah. Well, remember Suicide Squad didn't play in China just because like El Diablo and Enchantress and stuff like that. So I'm saying fact that he will, because I envision Ghost Rider to start very similar how Hulk was used early on in the MCU. Like, yeah, he got his film, but then after that, he was just like a side character crossing over a lot, getting lots of great moments, big action scenes. That's how I envision Ghost Rider right now. And I still think Ghost Rider will be Cosmic Ghost Rider, but either way, I don't think the debut is in his solo project. So that's me.
Yeah, I'll say fact. There's a reason why. Well, I mean, we can go the logistical reasons. They really hadn't started production on the Ghost Rider series with Robbie Reyes at that point, so it was easy to pull. Mm-hmm. But if also, that's also in my hope and praying, being a huge Ghost Rider fan, that Feige has plans for him, the character, and I could see that. I've been pitching the idea of Midnight Suns, starting with Blade and finding some way to. I know Cosmic Ghost Rider just doesn't fit in the standard Midnight Suns, idea, but I see it being a character introduced either within Blade or possibly Moon Knight or something along those lines. Just so, yeah, I'll say fact on that one. Plus, again, any way I can get Ghost Rider into the MCU, I'll take it.
Fanboy Clay in the chat. That's the cameo in WandaVision. Yeah, Nick Cage.
Taylor's been poaching that.
Every week Taylor's like, he just thinks because the devil's coming. But I'm gonna fucking eat crow if there is any mention of Johnny Blaze. And I'm not gonna show up to Geek First that day. But that'd be so funny if like Nick Cage come barging in one of these WandaVision episodes
with that big smile.
Yeah.
I'll make it 3. It's a fact. We're gonna see. We can see Ghost Rider. I like the idea of teaming him up with Blade. Maybe they can hunt down Morbius or something. I do think though. After 2 movies,
will they etch in damaged on his forehead?
They will.
No, they'll etch in Rider, or Vampire.
I feel like that's a character that you bring in. Like if it's Cosmic Ghost Rider, he shows up in Silver Surfer or something like that. Otherwise, maybe he shows up in Blade or Moon Knight. Like you said, you bring him in somewhere else, kind of gauge the audience reaction to him, and then you decide on a solo project for him.
I just like the SNL sketch that we have of like Jared Leto and Kevin Feige's like, hear me out. Ghost Rider and Blade, they team up to take on me. I'm the guy. And it's like, no.
And you know what? At the end, Feige says, and we kill you.
Yeah. Oh, well. Everyone comes back, right? The what ifs. Yeah, there's no what ifs this time, but so no resurrections.
We'll write you out in green light. That's Black and Sable movie, baby.
Yeah. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, those polls will go out this week. Please vote. Let me know and let us know if you have any of your own. And when do you give us your best Jared Leto pitch? How should he come in the MCU? Also give us that if you have it, because I'd like to hear that, and we'll send him those ideas. But now we're on to Comic Club Vision issue number 8, and just a depressing one. Fuck! Every week I'm always behind.
I don't know if you read the right issue.
One. The whole series is depressing.
It is, but like this one's it's just so solemn. This one, it's just such a bummer all the way around. But yes, number 9. And Brent, I'll let you lead because you haven't been here in the past few ones. What have you? Obviously, you talked about the series, I think, one time with us already. But what have you thought were 9 issues deep? And you've read it before, but how you enjoying it? And what do you think about this 9th issue?
Well, I decided I couldn't stop, and I just finished it before Wandavision started because it is such a good series. It is really good. issue 9, you get a lot of Victor, and I like how like the whole time like you're getting this story of Victor and how he came to be there, and he's like, my brother Vision, he's a superhero. I want to be like him, and then you end up killing his son. It's like,
Oh,
oh
yeah.
come on.
Yeah, and it's just like because we left off, we talked about last week being a big like cliffhanger, and this one we don't go too many places. It's very centric on Victor and like the event that's happening. Like that panel, unfortunately, of Vin dying, it's just like half the issue, which is like a good unfortunate thing as far as like it's just dark and you just see like his face and he's like, no, you need to stop it, and just very well done. And then also get the realization at the end when Vision and Virginia come in, and it's just like I said, it's just all throughout. It's not good stuff. And now you just feel like if you already hadn't reached the lowest point for these characters, this is now the lowest point we've gotten to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially just Vin crying out, "Father, Father!"
Yeah.
Stop at that point, and then we see the moment where his his crystal on his head rays out at that point, and eventually, spoiler, neighbors are gonna die.
Yeah.
At that point, they've already lost a dog. Let's kill both of them at that point. But it's always fascinating what Tom King can do with asides and characters that most of us, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't know who Victor was until the series, at that point. And
didn't read him in the Runaways.
it had been so long at that point. Yeah, it had been so long at that point. I'd read the first couple of arcs of Runaways at that point.
Those were the ones everybody's read, and then everyone fell off of it when Victor joined later.
Yeah. So I mean, there are reasons, but you see he's trying to fight against the prophecy of what he's supposed to be so much. And then when he's discovered, when he's trying to do something right by the Avengers and trying to prove himself at that point, and he just loses outright control, and everything he's doing is just like, I'm doing this right, and I just get so close, and then it gets ripped out of my hands. I'm trying to find a way, like vibranium is trying to center me, trying to do this, and I lose that. And everything that Vision's been holding on to in some way, shape, or form has been picked away. This so-called perfect life, this family he wants since issue 1 has been just chipped away into the moment that he almost lost his daughter, in the initial part of the series. And now he has officially lost his son at that point. And this is the, what, all three of us are fathers at that point. I could never imagine ever, like, whatever happens at that point, I would be outside my mind, to put it lightly, and to be very, I could say other profanities on this, but I choose not to. But, it's just, I literally reading these panels tears at my heart, just me having the possibility of thinking like that. And it's, geez, it was a heck of a, just like, oh my God.
Well, yeah, and it's one of these things too where you look at the character Vision at this point, who is trying to build a life, but he's also just on the edge because so much has gone wrong, and he's just trying to keep it all together. And obviously, we got some more issues to come, and we're gonna see what happens. But just even at this point, I remember the first time reading this, of like, again, like I said, if I just referred to like, oh, if it wasn't so low, this is the lowest. Same thing as like, if he could, like, he was barely keeping together now, what's going to happen after this? And I remember just being like, man, this can't be good things. And I think this is where people always bring up Tom King, and it is still his best work. I've not read everything he's done, but I've read his most biggest stuff. And I still call back to these moments, and and it's a shout out to everybody else involved in it too. It's just the panels they have. I remember that panel when I read the first time, Vision holding his son, and then just Virginia, like, phasing into the room, and just her face, and it's just this moment of just tragedy, because you have this, like, I know it's all synthoids and whatnot, but still you have this uncle who killed his nephew, he has father losing his son, you have this wife who she put on this trajectory, right? Like, she's kind of the cause of his death because of killing the Grim Reaper and all these things and trying to cover things up. So it's just like, very terribly, but it's like that expression, a series of unfortunate events. Like, the bad thing is these unfortunate events are the nth degree of that. And it's just such a somber, it's a great read. But I just remember rereading this, being like, man, this one is just so depressing. It's just like, even when they have those shots of Victor when he gets confronted, or like he meets the Avengers, when he's just sitting in that room by himself, like disheveled and a mess, and he's crying. It's just like, this character's been through a lot, and now he's going to go through a lot more, and just very well done. And it's just a beautiful comic book. The covers of this series are always a standout, but like, it's just like, because even then too, when I saw it the first time, I was like, I don't know if they're really gonna kill his son, because we get fake outs like that all the time in comic books. Even with the cover, that doesn't mean anything. We've seen covers before kind of show you one thing and then the story leads to somewhere else. It's just a cool cover. But no, they doubled down on that in this issue.
Yeah, they already showed us his daughter almost being killed, and then they managed to save her. And they talked about Vision's history in an earlier issue, times he's been destroyed and able to come back. And so, yeah, with you, the first time I read it, I'm like, well, obviously he's going to end up living, because they're just going to recreate him. And just this whole series is like Vision trying to be a real person. And while he does get some of the joys that brings, unfortunately, he gets like every tragedy imaginable thrown at him that a real person would go through, and he experiences it all, including the worst of them all, with the death of his child.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned the covers. The next issue is probably my favorite cover of the series, the family tree of Vision.
Cool.
It's very interesting. Like you said, every cover, but if I have to pick one, this is my favorite, the upcoming one.
Yeah, and funny enough, like what Brent was talking about there with like what Vision has to go through, and then the reason we picked this is because like how it's going to relate to WandaVision, and I feel like we're going to get that in a sense too, as far as there's a chance that she could lose Vision again. She's gonna maybe lose her kids that she's created and stuff like that, and just it's gonna get a lot worse. So that's where you definitely see the tones in other times in this comic book, but in taking that sense of almost replacing Vision with Wanda, I think the show is using that as a spiritual successor, as far as like she's lost a lot, and she's gonna have even more so to lose. And
well, even the idea of taking the essence of Victor and taking that character and putting it into Wanda, the essence of Victor trying to do the right thing and trying to do something and hold on to something of an idea and resist being looked at as something, when you're basically the villain of the story when it comes down to it.
Yeah. Well, another good issue. Another, like I said, somber one, but a good issue nonetheless. And we carry on next week with the family drama and family ties that is the Vision family.
There you go. And we bring episode number 34 to a close.
All done. Well, Brent, where can they find you? As again, thank you very much for,
yes, thank you.
Big milestone, first time in 2021, but no. Thank you for joining. We always have a great time talking. I know we talk to you every day, but it's good talking to you on this, and I know the listeners like it too. So it was a good time.
Well, thank you. I really do appreciate the invite and how momentous it is. First 2021. That's excellent. Yeah, I'm Brent Tech Prime on Twitter, and then co-host Fans Without Borders and Marvel Squadcast. So you can find those shows weekly.
Boom. And then I am Travis B. Snell. Find me on Twitter. My name's always changing. It's always something to do with WandaVision right now. But yeah, no, Brent doesn't like it because there's
every time I have to look up who's texting me.
Yeah, I have thought about in the future doing Travis Snell and then having something after it just for marketing purposes and stuff like that. So it might change in the future. We'll see. But yeah, you can find me over there. I'm on this show every week. I sometimes guest on other stuff. I'm on Geek First. I don't even know what we have going on over there. I think we're about to do our Patreon watch along. We're about to do a commentary track for BVS. It's going to be Kirkland's first time seeing the Ultimate Cut, so it's going to be nothing controversial. In March, we're going to be dropping our Man of Steel retrospective. Same thing. He had never seen that before, and it was fun to revisit that. And I just finally, for the years of not talking about Man of Steel, got to rant about that tornado, because I like a lot of things in that movie. But that tornado, it'll bug me to the day I die, So go check
everyone's got a hill to die on.
Oh, that's definitely
including Jonathan Kent.
I walked into that one.
Yeah, like him, he didn't walk away from the tornado. Chris, where can they find you? He could even try to run. He could have even tried to just barrel roll.
Stop it. We're not going down this road.
He could have went to the ground and rolled. Come on now. Just try.
Not taking that bait. That's a debate either for another time.
Where can they find you?
You
Sir?
can find me on Twitter at Chris Balger. You can follow the this show on Twitter at Marvel 8 Podcast. You can email the show at marvelalianspodcast@gmail.com.
We broke Brent.
You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you've got any factor fictions, got any listener questions. If you want to debate Travis on the hill he's dying on with Man of Steel, or anything that you just completely disagree with him on and want to call him on it, I'm sure he appreciates a good healthy conversation on Twitter.
Of course, it's all for fun. It's all, as your co-host would say, it's all subjective. Even though if he were to listen to a second of this, he'd hate my guts. I know it. Like it's so like I can't. I hope one day in the future. I hope one day in the future I do talk and podcast with Ray, because like me and him are just like the polar opposite on every single thing. He the whole week in the Packers in the playoff just throwing so much shade at it, and just like every single thing. But he's a very smart and funny guy, and yeah, that's like he said, it's all subjective. It's like for somebody that's their maybe favorite comic book moment, and that's the good thing about this all. It's all for fun. If you take it as an ill will, come on now. There's more stuff to get worried about. About how Jared Leto's in the MCU.
And don't be surprised at the end of when Travis wants to end this thing, you'll see Adam Sandler from that movie Uncut Gems at that point. And,
yeah, I've told Chris privately, no, I don't get in any Twitter debates on Twitter anymore. That's my whole thing with everybody. I've seen with the Snyder Cut coming out. I all drop is the Adam Sandler Uncut Gems. I disagree, and then talk about, because it's so much healthier to talk on like this. It's just great. It's so nice.
So anyways, if you want to try to hold Travis to that, you know where to find him. Yep. Oh, Scott, I'm dying at the end of this.
He's worried. He's like, oh no, I'm associating myself with Travis. The Squadcast guys are going to hate me now.
Don't worry. They directed all at me first anyway.
Yeah.
Brent's my shield. Brent put me up to it. I swear. I love Jared Leto.
Well, as always, thank you all for listening to how this podcast has gone to a very different direction at the end. We thank you, listeners.
Hang on. The last thing is, because it's at the end, no one will ever hear it. Because if you look at podcast statistics, they usually drop out like in the last 5 minutes. Like, okay, I listened to it. So there's a chance no one ever heard this. It's like a tree. If it falls in the forest, do you hear it? We'll find out if I get any tweets this week. I'll let you know. Chris.
They're saying where they can be found. They're saying where they can be found. I know where they're at. Next episode.
Yeah.
The retweet of this episode will make sure you stay at the end. It's going to be a good one.
Oh, so, yeah. No, anyway. Someone will cut it out. Travis Hines is going to cut out the clip and send it right to the squad. He'll send it right to Ray. And he'll be like, look, he hates the tornado moment. Go get him. And I'll be like, oh, no.
Anyways, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. We appreciate it again. Thank you, Brent, for joining us. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers.